At Morixa Tales, we believe in the power of storytelling. Our scripts weave together deep emotions and dramatic turns to deliver justice where it is most needed. Experience captivating mysteries where the truth eventually shines through, leaving a lasting impact on your heart and mind.
My sister smashed the violin my daughter had just been gifted after her recital. She looked at me, smiled with cold mockery, and said, "You and your daughter are too poor to deserve something this valuable." The entire auditorium stared at us with pity. What she didn't know was that I was holding a secret of hers, one that would change everything. By tomorrow morning, she would start paying the price. Thank you for spending time here with me. Before we begin, please leave a comment and let me know where are you watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has reached. A gentle reminder, some elements in this story are dramatized for educational purposes. Any resemblance to real people or places is purely coincidental, but the message will transform how you view family relationships. The shards of the $15,000 violin crunched beneath my heels as I stood frozen in the center of Charleston Music Hall's polished stage. The house light still blazing after Lily's triumphant recital illuminated every jagged fragment scattered across the honey-colored wood like a constellation of broken dreams. 2 hours ago, this stage had been a place of magic. Now it looked like a crime scene. I couldn't stop staring at the largest piece, the violin scroll hand-carved by a luthier in Cremona, Italy, still impossibly intact despite Peyton's fury. My father had presented it to Lily just 20 minutes earlier, his weathered hands trembling as he placed the instrument in my 12-year-old daughter's arms. "For all the dreams you'll make, real sweetheart." He'd said, his voice thick with an emotion I hadn't heard in years. Peyton had made sure those dreams shattered before Lily could even hold the bow. 2 hours earlier, the recital had been flawless. Lily had walked onto this same stage in her black velvet dress, her dark hair swept into an elegant bun that made her look older than 12, more composed than I'd ever felt at 39. 50 guests, friends, family, 3 representatives from Juilliard pre-college, a music critic from the Post and Courier had filled the first 10 rows, their programs rustling in the expectant silence before my daughter lifted her bow. Bach's Violin Concerto No. 2 in E major. 15 minutes of technical precision and raw emotion that I'd heard her practice 10,000 times in our Mount Pleasant living room, but never like this. Never with the confidence of a young woman who'd just received a full scholarship to one of the most prestigious music programs in America. Never with the knowledge that her future was finally impossibly secure. When she played the final note, the hall erupted. A standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Mrs. Patterson from Charleston Youth Orchestra pressed a handkerchief to her eyes. Michael, my father. Daddy, the man who'd sat through every one of Lily's recitals for 6 years, stood in the front row with his arms crossed over his chest, trying to hide the tears that streaked his weathered face. I'd watched from stage left, my heart so full it hurt. This was what survival looked like, I'd thought. This was what we'd fought for Lily and me through the years of single motherhood and late-night accounting work and a family that had never believed I could raise a child alone. This moment was ours. Then Peyton arrived. My younger sister had swept into the hall 20 minutes after the final bow, her heels clicking against the marble lobby floor like gunshots. I'd heard her before I saw her, heard the sharp intake of breath from the Juilliard representatives, the sudden hush that fell over the post-recital reception. Peyton Hart knew how to make an entrance. At 33, with 2 million Instagram followers and a corporate event planning business that netted her close to $200,000 a year, she'd perfected the art of demanding attention. She'd also perfected the art of resenting me. "Well, isn't this special?" Peyton had said, her voice carrying across the reception hall, where guests balanced champagne flutes and petit fours. She'd stopped in front of the refreshment table, her eyes scanning the room, until they landed on Lily, who stood beside Michael clutching the violin case he'd just given her. A $185,000 scholarship. Must be nice to have Daddy paying for everything. Lily had flinched. At 12, she didn't yet understand that Peyton's words were never just words, they were weapons, carefully sharpened and precisely aimed. "Peyton," I'd said, stepping between my sister and my daughter, "this isn't the time." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time." Peyton's smile had been sharp enough to cut glass. "I think it's time everyone knew how you manipulate Daddy, how you've turned him against his own family, how you've made sure everything, every opportunity, every dollar goes to you and your little prodigy." The room had gone silent. Michael had moved toward us, his hand outstretched, but Peyton was faster. She'd grabbed the violin from Lily's hands, the new one, the Guarneri replica that Michael had saved for 2 years to buy, and before anyone could stop her. She'd raised it above her head and slammed it against the edge of the refreshment table. The sound of it breaking had been worse than any scream. Now 30 minutes later, the guests were gone. The Juilliard representatives had quietly excused themselves, promising to call next week. The security guards had escorted Peyton to the parking lot, her voice echoing through the hall as she shouted accusations. I'd heard my entire life: favoritism, manipulation, theft. Mrs. Patterson had offered to drive Lily home. I'd said no. We'd stay until I could wrap my mind around what had just happened. Michael had stayed too. He stood now at the edge of the stage, a battered leather briefcase in his hands. I'd seen that briefcase before he'd carried it during his 30 years as a U.S. Marshall used it to transport evidence and case files, and the kind of documentation that put criminals behind bars. I hadn't seen it in the 5 years since his retirement. "Rosalind," he said quietly, "we need to talk." I looked at him. Really looked at him and saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Not sadness, not anger, something colder, something that looked like resolve. He opened the briefcase. Inside, arranged in perfect chronological order, were 12 manila folders. Each one was labeled with a year: 2012, 2013, 2014, all the way through 2024. Each one was at least an inch thick. "What is this?" I whispered. "The truth." Michael's voice was steady, the voice of a man who'd spent 3 decades delivering bad news to victims' families. "For 15 years, I've been documenting everything Peyton has done to you, every lie, every act of sabotage, every crime." I stared at the folders, my mind struggling to process his words. Crime. "She didn't just destroy Lily's violin tonight, honey." He lifted the first folder, dated 2012. "She's been destroying your life since the day you left for college, and I have proof of all of it." My hands shook as I reached for the folder. 12 years, 12 folders, 12 years of my life reduced to evidence in a U.S. Marshal's briefcase. "Daddy," I said, and my voice cracked on the word. "What did Peyton do?" Michael looked at me with eyes that held 15 years of guilt and rage and love. "Everything," he said. "She did everything." I stood there on that stage, surrounded by broken glass and broken dreams, holding a folder that promised to rewrite everything I thought I knew about my family, about my sister, about the woman who'd just tried to destroy my daughter's future in front of 50 witnesses. And I realized I had no idea who Peyton Hart really was. What did she do for 15 years that required 12 folders of evidence? The question hung in the air between us, unanswered, as the house lights dimmed and the music hall fell into shadow. I was about to find out. I didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. After leaving the music hall, Lily and I sat in the Honda for 20 minutes in silence, the briefcase with 12 folders on the back seat. She'd fallen asleep somewhere around midnight, and I'd driven us home to Mount Pleasant on autopilot, my mind cycling through 15 years of questions I'd never thought to ask. Now it was 7 in the morning, and the folders were spread across my kitchen table, like evidence at a crime scene. I'd carried them inside at 11:47 p.m. I remembered the time because it felt surreal to note the exact moment you discovered your father had been documenting your sister's crimes. I'd made coffee, checked on Lily, made more coffee, watched the sun rise over the magnolia tree in my backyard, and I still hadn't opened a single folder. The morning light turned everything soft gold: the neighbor's white picket fence, the welcome mat Lily had painted in 3rd grade. This house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch I'd bought with life insurance money after my husband's accident in 2015, had always felt safe. A place where Peyton's chaos couldn't reach us. I'd been wrong. I picked up my coffee mug, the one that said, "World's Okayest Mom," and studied the folders. 12 years, 12 crimes, 12 pieces of evidence my father, a man who'd spent 30 years as a U.S. Marshall had collected in silence while I struggled to survive. Why now, Daddy? Why wait until last night? But I knew. Michael Hart didn't act without reason. If he'd waited 15 years, it was because whatever Peyton had done required ironclad proof. The thought made my hands shake. I grew up believing I was the problem. That's what happens when you're the scapegoat in a family with a narcissist for a mother and a golden child for a sister. You internalize the blame. By age 10, I knew the script Rosalind is difficult. Rosalind is ungrateful. Rosalind ruins everything. Barbara Hart, my mother, had perfected this narrative. A corporate lawyer for a Charleston firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions. She'd retired at 60 with a pension of $9,200 a month and a reputation as the most feared attorney in the Low Country. She'd brought those same skills home: surgical precision, ruthless negotiation, the ability to destroy without breaking a sweat. Michael, by contrast, had been quiet. A U.S. Marshal who tracked fugitives and served warrants, he'd come home exhausted and retreated to his garage workshop where he restored antique furniture. I'd loved him desperately as a child, loved sitting beside him while he sanded chair legs, never asking me to explain why Barbara was angry or why Peyton was crying. But he'd never defended me. Not when Barbara screamed that I'd broken the antique vase in 1992. I was 7. Peyton, barely 1, had knocked it off the table with her toy. Not when I was accused of stealing Barbara's wallet in 1995. Peyton, at 4, had hidden it in her toy chest. But I was grounded for 2 weeks. Not when our Disney World vacation in 1998 turned into a disaster because Peyton got sick, and Barbara blamed me for not watching her properly. I'd learned to stop expecting him to step in. Michael observed. He documented. He collected evidence. But he didn't act. Until last night. Peyton, 6 years younger, had been born into her role as effortlessly as I'd been condemned to mine. The golden child. The miracle baby. She'd been beautiful from birth, thick dark hair, Barbara's sharp cheekbones, a smile that could disarm anyone. By 5, she knew how to wield it, how to cry on cue, how to make me the villain. Barbara had poured everything into her. Private schools, dance lessons, pageants, an Instagram account launched at 16 that now had 2 million followers. A corporate event planning business built on Barbara's connections that netted close to $180,000 a year. Peyton lived in a downtown Charleston loft, drove a BMW, wore designer clothes. I'd fought for everything. Worked through college on scholarships, married young, widowed young when my husband died 6 months after Lily was born, built a forensic accounting practice from scratch, billing $70 an hour to small firms, made $95,000 in a good year, $60 in a bad one, drove a 10-year-old Civic, bought Lily's clothes at Target. And still, Barbara convinced everyone I was selfish, the one who'd abandoned family values, the one who refused to make peace with Peyton as if peace were possible with someone who'd spent her life ensuring I had none. I wrapped both hands around my coffee mug and stared at the folders. The kitchen was quiet except for the refrigerator's hum and a neighbor's dog barking. Lily would wake in an hour and I'd need answers. She'd ask about Peyton, about why her aunt destroyed the most valuable gift she'd ever received, and I didn't know what to tell her. "What did you find, Daddy?" I thought, running my finger along the 2012 folder. What did Peyton do that required 12 years of evidence? I thought about the shattered violin, about Lily's face, about the way Peyton had smiled as security dragged her out. The question wasn't, what did Peyton do? It was, what didn't she do? I pulled the first folder toward me and opened it. Michael's handwriting stared back. Case file number 1. Career sabotage. 2019 to 2024. Suspect Peyton, Olivia Hart victim. Rosalind Marie Hart evidence. 12 fraudulent emails, IP logs, Trojan malware. My coffee went cold. What's in these folders you collected for 15 years, Daddy? I was about to find out. 7 hours had passed since I'd opened the first folder. 7 hours of reading and rereading, of pacing between my home office and the kitchen, of checking on Lily when she woke at 9 and pretending everything was fine when she asked if I was okay. I'd sent her to her best friend Emma's house for the afternoon, told her I had work to catch up on, which wasn't exactly a lie. This was work. The kind that rearranged everything you thought you knew about your life. Now it was 2 in the afternoon, and I sat alone in my home office with the door closed and the blinds drawn against the March sunlight. The folder marked Career Sabotage. 2019 to 2024 lay open on my desk, surrounded by 12 printed emails that had apparently destroyed 5 years of my professional life without me ever knowing who'd written them. The first email stared up at me the words no less shocking on the 10th reading than they'd been on the first. From rosalind.hart.consulting@gmail.com to mark.anderson@andersonfinancials, c.com. Date March 15th, 2019. Subject rate increase. Effective immediately. Mr. Anderson. Effective immediately, my forensic accounting services will cost $28,000 per audit, up from the current $12,000 rate. This is non-negotiable. If you have any issues with this pricing structure, I suggest you find another accountant. I'm sure there are plenty of less qualified people who'd be happy to work for peanuts. The new rate applies to all future work, including the Q1 audit scheduled for next week. Payment in full is due within 48 hours of invoice. Regards, Rosalind Hart, CPA CFE. I'd never written those words, never sent that email, never even used that email address. rosalind.hart.consulting@gmail.com wasn't mine. My professional email had always been rosalind.hart.cpa@gmail.com. Come the one I'd set up when I got my CPA license 12 years ago. But Mark Anderson had received this email. He'd believed it came from me. And according to the note Michael had paperclipped to the printout, Anderson Financial had terminated our contract 3 days later on March 18th, 2019. A contract worth $12,000 gone. One of my first major clients gone. I remembered that loss. Remembered calling Mark's office and getting his assistant, who'd said coolly that Mr. Anderson had decided to go in a different direction. I'd spent weeks wondering what I'd done wrong. Had I missed something in the previous audit, made an error in my calculations? I'd reviewed every file, every spreadsheet, finding nothing. Eventually, I'd accepted it as bad luck. Clients left sometimes. That was freelance life. Except it hadn't been bad luck at all. The remaining 11 emails followed the same pattern. Fake email address, aggressive, unprofessional language, demands for massive rate increases, or threats to walk away from contracts. Sometimes both. Each one sent to a different client, each one perfectly timed to destroy a relationship I'd spent months or years building. Email July 2nd, 2019, Low Country Law Group. Demand for $50,000 to complete a fraud investigation. I'd quoted at $18,000. Contract terminated July 22nd. Email the 3rd of November 2019, Charleston Medical Group. Accusation that they'd been taking advantage of my services. Demand for back payment of $20,000. Contract terminated November 30th. Email 4, March 2020, Sullivan and Partners. Sent the week COVID lockdowns began, demanding $60,000 for an audit in a $40,000 contract. Canceled April 2nd, right when I desperately needed the income. The list went on. 12 clients over 5 years, 12 professionally written, perfectly timed emails designed to make me look greedy, unstable, impossible to work with. 12 contracts worth an average of $70,000 each, according to Michael's meticulous notes. $840,000 gone. I'd lost $840,000 in 5 years and blamed myself for all of it. I pushed back from my desk and walked to the window, my hands shaking. The neighborhood outside looked absurdly normal: kids riding bikes, someone mowing their lawn, the magnolia tree in my yard dropping pink petals on the grass. The world where people didn't systematically destroy their sisters' careers. I'd thought it was me. Thought I'd somehow failed as a freelancer, failed to keep clients happy, failed to adapt to market changes. When COVID hit in 2020 and 3 more clients left within 6 months, I'd assumed it was pandemic-related belt-tightening. Everyone was struggling. I'd taken on extra projects, cut my rates, worked 16-hour days to make up the lost income. Cried myself to sleep wondering how I'd pay Lily's music lessons, her school fees, our mortgage. And the whole time, Peyton had been methodically destroying everything I'd built. Why? The question pounded in my head. Why would she do this? We barely spoke. I hadn't done anything to her. I'd stayed out of her way, kept my distance, asked for nothing. What had I done to deserve 5 years of calculated sabotage? But I knew the answer didn't I'd existed. That was enough. In Barbara's world, in Peyton's world, my existence was the problem. My success, however modest, was an affront. Every client I landed, every invoice I collected, every time I managed to keep my head above water, as a single mother with a freelance career, it proved that I didn't need them, that I could survive without Barbara's approval or Peyton's validation. And that, apparently, was unforgivable. My phone rang, jolting me from the window. Michael's name appeared on the screen. "Daddy," I said, my voice hoarse. I'd been crying without realizing it. "You read the emails." It wasn't a question. All 12, my throat closed. $840,000, 5 years. I thought it was my fault. It wasn't. His voice had the flat certainty of a man who'd spent 30 years dealing with criminals. "Rosalind Honey, listen to me. I need you to look at the second page in that folder. There's something else you need to know." I flipped to the second page with numb fingers. It was a printout from a tech forensics report dense with terminology I didn't fully understand. IP addresses, log files, something called a calendar sync Trojan. "I don't understand what I'm looking at," I said. "Peyton didn't just send those emails randomly," Michael said. "She knew exactly when to send them. She knew when you had contract renewals coming up, when you had client meetings scheduled, when you were about to close a new deal. She had access to your Google Calendar, Rosalind. She'd been tracking every appointment, every deadline, every professional move you made since 2019. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of my desk. "That's not possible. My calendar is private. It's password protected. I never." "She installed malware on your laptop," Michael said quietly. "Probably at a family gathering. Christmas, Thanksgiving sometime when she had access to your computer for a few minutes. The forensics expert I hired found the Trojan files. They're all there in the report. 5 years. Peyton had been inside my calendar for 5 years watching my schedule, timing her attacks for maximum damage. When did you... "I suspected something was wrong in 2022, Michael said. You'd lost so many clients and you're good at what you do. Too good for that many terminations to be coincidence. I hired a private forensics investigator. Cost me $15,000, but I had to know. When the report came back last year, I started collecting everything. Every email. Every piece of evidence. I knew when the time came, we'd need it all." "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out as a whisper. Because I needed more. One twist wasn't enough. I needed to know the full scope of what she'd done. "And honey," his voice cracked slightly, "there's more. A lot more." The career sabotage is just the beginning. I stared at the remaining 11 folders on my desk. 11 more crimes, 11 more years of evidence. "How did she access my calendar?" I asked. "How did she get into my laptop without me knowing?" "That," Michael said, "is what we're going to find out next." Emily Gray's office smelled like coffee and electronics, burnt Starbucks, and overheating server racks. I'd found her through Linda Russo, my attorney, who'd used her in a corporate espionage case 2 years ago. "She's expensive," Linda warned, "but if anyone can find digital evidence, it's Emily. $15,000. I'd transferred the money that morning, hands shaking. 3 months of mortgage payments, Lily's violin lessons for a year. But if Emily could prove what Peyton had done, it would be worth it. Now I sat across from her in a windowless room lined with monitors and hard drives, my laptop and phone on the steel table between us. Emily was 38 rail thin with gray-streaked hair pulled into a messy bun and reading glasses on a chain. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a Charleston accent softened by tech conferences. "Walk me through what you know," she said, pulling on latex gloves. I slid the printed emails across the table. 12 fake emails over 5 years. My father thinks my sister installed malware to track my schedule so she'd know when to send them. Emily's eyebrows rose. "Your father's Michael Hart. I worked a case with him in 2018. Good man. If he thinks there's malware, there's malware." She opened my laptop, fingers flying. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The first thing Emily did was analyze the email headers, the hidden metadata most people never see. She pulled up a terminal window, black screen with green text, scrolling too fast to read, and started typing commands I didn't understand. Here, she said after 10 minutes, pointing to code on her screen. Originating IP 173.79.45.128. That's a residential Charleston IP Comcast network. Your sister lives in Charleston. Downtown, Market Street? Emily pulled up a map. 173.79.45.12, 8 traces to downtown Charleston. Want to bet it matches her address? My stomach twisted. Can you prove it's hers? Not yet, but look at the timestamps. She opened each email in sequence, highlighting sent times. 2 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 4:03 a.m. Whoever sent these was wide awake in the middle of the night, probably assuming you'd be asleep. Classic stalker behavior. And the fake email account, Emily navigated to Gmail's creation records. Rosalind.hart.consulting@gmail.com was created February 15th, 2019 at 2:47 a.m. Same IP. A month before the first email. Premeditation. She glanced at me. Your sister planned this. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process that Peyton had sat in her loft at 3 a.m. creating a fake version of me, preparing to destroy my career with methodical precision. Now let's find out how she knew when to send them, Emily said. The scan took 40 minutes. Emily ran 3 malware detection programs, each digging deeper into my system files. I watched code scroll past, watched her frown deepen, watched her pull out a legal pad and start taking notes. Got it, she finally said. Google CalSync.dll, sitting in your Google Calendar cache disguised as a legitimate sync file. Clever. What does it do? Emily opened the file's properties. This auto-syncs your entire Google Calendar to an external server, 192.168.1.45, probably your sister's home network. Every appointment, every deadline, every client meeting you've scheduled for 5 years has been copied to her computer in real time. The room felt too hot. She's been watching my schedule for 5 years, watching recording and timing her attacks perfectly. Emily's voice was gentle now. This is sophisticated malware, Rosalind, not something you download by accident. Someone physically installed this. When's the last time your sister had access to your laptop? I closed my eyes. Christmas 2018, my parents' house. Peyton asked to borrow it to check email, said her phone died. I let her take it to the guest room. How long? 15, maybe 20 minutes. Emily pulled up Windows Event Viewer, scrolling to December 25th, 2018, and pointed to a line highlighted in yellow. USB device connected 3:45 p.m. device name. Peyton_USB file transfer. Google CalSync.dll 247 kilobytes. There, Emily said. 3:45 p.m. on Christmas Day. Your sister plugged in a USB drive and copied the Trojan onto your laptop. The malware activated 2 minutes later and has been running continuously since. I remembered that Christmas. Barbara criticizing the casserole I'd brought. Lily, 6 years old, playing with her new toy violin under the tree. Peyton arriving late in a designer dress, monopolizing conversation with Instagram stories. Remembered her smiling sweetly when she'd asked to borrow my laptop. I need to print something, she'd said, all innocence. My phone died. I'd handed it over without thinking. We were family. Why wouldn't I trust her? She'd taken it to the guest room, the one with the door that locked. I'd gone back to help Mom with dinner while Peyton systematically installed surveillance software that would let her watch every move I made for 5 years. She knew, I said aloud. She brought that USB drive to Christmas dinner. Premeditated, Emily repeated. This wasn't impulse. She planned it probably for weeks. Researched the malware, tested it, waited for an opportunity. She closed the laptop gently. Rosalind, your sister, has been stalking you digitally for over 5 years. She's watched every client meeting, every deadline, every professional appointment. That's not sibling rivalry. That's criminal behavior. My hands were shaking. I gripped the table. What else could she have installed? Emily's expression turned grim. That's what we need to find out. If she put a calendar Trojan on your laptop, there could be more. Keyloggers, screen capture software, remote access tools. We should check your phone and any other devices. I thought about my phone, my tablet, the desktop in my home office. How many devices had Peyton touched over the years? How many holidays when I'd been distracted and she'd had 30 seconds alone? How long will it take? Another day, maybe 2. I'll need to image all your devices and run full forensic scans. Emily started labeling evidence bags. But Rosalind, based on what I've found, I'd assume your sister has had access to everything. Your emails, your files, your passwords, everything. I left Emily's office Monday afternoon with a burner phone and instructions not to use my regular devices. The March sun felt too bright after 2 hours in that windowless room. I sat in my Honda for 10 minutes trying to absorb what I'd learned. Peyton had been inside my life for 5 years, watching, waiting, timing her attacks with surgical precision. And I'd never known. If she could hack my calendar, what else had she hacked? What else had she stolen? I started the engine hand still shaking and headed home to wait for Emily's call. But I already knew the answer. Everything. Peyton had taken everything. And I was only beginning to understand how much. By Tuesday morning, I'd stopped sleeping entirely. Emily had finished imaging my phone and tablet, both clean, thank God, but the laptop Trojan was enough. I had proof now. Proof that Peyton had sabotaged me for 5 years. Proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't incompetent, wasn't the problem I'd spent a lifetime believing I was. Now I needed to do something with that proof. I sat at my kitchen table at 6 a.m. on March 19th with my laptop open and Emily's 70-page forensic report converted to PDF, 12 clients, 12 contracts lost. 12 people who'd believed I'd sent those aggressive, unprofessional emails because why wouldn't they? The emails had come from an address that looked like mine. The tone was offshore, but people changed. Stress did things to you. Maybe I'd just cracked under pressure, except I hadn't, and now I could prove it. I started typing. Subject, an apology and an explanation. Dear client name. 5 years ago, you received an email that appeared to come from me, an email that was aggressive, unprofessional, and completely out of character. I want you to know that I did not write that email. My sister created a fake email address, impersonated me, and sent fraudulent communications to destroy my professional relationships. I have attached a comprehensive forensic report from Emily Gray, a certified digital forensics expert, that proves these emails were sent from my sister's IP address using malware she installed on my computer. I understand if you've moved on and found other accountants, but I wanted you to know the truth. I'm sorry for any confusion or frustration those emails caused. They were not from me. Sincerely, Rosalind Hart, CPA-CFE. I attached Emily's report, took a breath, and hit send 12 times. Then I waited. The first response came 3 hours later. Mark Anderson, CEO of Anderson Financial. The first client I'd lost back in March 2019. My phone rang at 9:47 a.m., his name lighting up the screen. Mark. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Rosalind, he sounded tired. I just read the forensic report, all 70 pages. Jesus Christ. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry I didn't figure it out sooner. I didn't know. Stop. His voice was firm but not unkind. You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who should be apologizing. That email you supposedly sent in 2019, the one demanding $28,000 for a $12,000 job, it felt wrong. You'd never talked to me like that. Never. But I told myself maybe you were going through something. Maybe you needed the money. And instead of picking up the phone and asking if you were okay, I just ended the contract. Sent you a form letter through my assistant. My throat tightened. You had no reason to think it wasn't me. I had 5 years of working with you, Mark said quietly. 5 years of knowing you were professional and fair and honest. I should have trusted that over one email. I should have called, and I didn't. So I'm sorry, Rosalind. I'm so damn sorry. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Thank you. I read what your sister did. The malware, the fake account, the systematic sabotage. He paused. That's not sibling rivalry, that's criminal. Are you pressing charges? I'm considering it. Good. You should. Mark cleared his throat. Listen, I've already moved to another firm for our audits, and they're contracted through next year. But after that, I'd be honored to work with you again. You're one of the best forensic accountants I've ever met. What happened to you wasn't fair. I couldn't speak for a moment. Finally, thank you, Mark. That means more than you know. Take care of yourself, Rosalind, and nail your sister to the wall. The second response came that afternoon. David Hughes, managing partner at Low Country Law Group, the firm that had terminated a $120,000 fraud investigation contract in July 2020. His email read, Rosalind, I've reviewed the forensic report with our IT department and our general counsel. We're satisfied that the emails in question were fraudulent and that you were the victim of targeted harassment. We regret terminating our contract based on false information. If you're interested, we'd like to reinstate our relationship. We have 2 ongoing fraud investigations that could use your expertise. Let me know if you'd be open to discussing terms. Best regards, David Hughes. I stared at the email for a full minute before responding. $120,000. Not lost forever. Not irretrievable. I hit reply and typed 3 words, I'd be honored. Over the next 3 days, responses trickled in. Some apologetic, some defensive. Some had moved on and couldn't reinstate contracts, but wished me well. 2 didn't respond at all. By Thursday evening, I'd heard from 10 of the 12 clients. 4 wanted to work with me again. 3 apologized profusely. 2 explained they'd gone in-house with their accounting and couldn't switch back. One, a medical practice that had always been difficult, sent a curt reply saying they were satisfied with their current arrangement. I built a spreadsheet to track the damage. 12 contracts. Average value $70,000, $840,000 in direct losses. Then I added the opportunity cost, what I could have earned if that money had been invested over 5 years at a conservative 5% return. The number climbed to $1.05 million. Total damage $1.89 million. Nearly $2 million my sister had cost me. $2 million I'd lost while raising Lily alone, scrimping and saving, wondering why I couldn't get ahead. I was staring at that number when my phone rang. Michael. Daddy, I said. You reached out to your clients. It wasn't a question. Emily's report gave me proof. I needed them to know it wasn't me. Good. He paused. Honey, I have something else you need to hear. I'm sending you an audio file right now. It's from October 2019. I recorded it in Barbara's car. She didn't know I'd installed a microphone after I started suspecting something was wrong. My email pinged. One attachment, Barbara and Peyton, recording from October 2019. There's also an affidavit from the neighbor, Mrs. Coleman. She's seen Peyton coming to our house at 2-3 in the morning for years. Timestamps match when those fake emails were sent. I opened the audio file with shaking hands and hit play. Peyton's voice came through first, eager and proud. Mom, guess what 6 clients have terminated contracts with Rosalind? She's scrambling to figure out why they're all leaving. She thinks it's her fault. Barbara's voice responded encouraging. 6 already, Peyton, that's impressive. You're really following through on your plan. I am. I'm not going to stop until she loses everything, every single client. She doesn't deserve success. She doesn't deserve anything. Barbara laughed. I'm proud of you, darling. You're so much stronger than she ever was. Keep going. I won't tell your father. Thanks, Mom. Trust me, she won't know what hit her. The file ended. I sat in my kitchen in complete silence, staring at my laptop screen. Mom, not just Peyton acting alone out of jealousy or spite. Mom had orchestrated this. Mom had told Peyton to destroy me. I started crying and couldn't stop. Michael called back 10 minutes later. You listened. Why? My voice cracked. Why would she do this? I'm her daughter. I don't know, honey. Michael's voice was thick with something I'd never heard from him, rage. I've asked myself that question for 3 years. The only answer I have is that your mother is not the person I thought I married, and I'm done protecting her. I wiped my face. What else did they destroy, Daddy? If Mom and Peyton sabotaged my career, what else did they take from me? Michael was quiet for a long moment. Open the second folder, Rosalind. We're not done yet. I didn't sleep Thursday night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Barbara's voice. She doesn't deserve success. She doesn't deserve anything. My mother had wanted me to fail, had orchestrated my destruction with the same cold precision she'd once used to dismantle opposing counsel in court, and I'd never suspected. Never imagined she hated me that much. By Friday morning, I was running on coffee and adrenaline. Lily had already left for school. I'd forced myself to make her breakfast, pack her lunch, pretend everything was fine. The moment the door closed behind her, I went back to my home office and stared at the remaining folders on my desk. 11 more. 11 more crimes. 11 more years of evidence. I reached for the second folder with shaking hands. The label read Digital Framing and CP a License Attack December 2023 to February 2024. I opened it. The first document was a printout of an anonymous email sent to the South Carolina Board of Accountancy on February 5th, 2024, just 6 weeks ago. I remembered that date. I'd been in the middle of tax season working 18-hour days trying to make up for the clients I'd lost. I remembered checking my email that morning and seeing nothing unusual. I hadn't known someone was trying to destroy my professional license until it was almost too late. The email read, "To whom it may concern. I am writing to report serious criminal activity by CPA license holder Rosalind Marie Hart, license SC47829. I have credible evidence that Ms. Hart has been engaging in computer fraud, specifically hacking into financial institutions to steal customer data. Attached are screenshots showing Ms. Hart's illegal activities, including terminal commands used to breach Bank of America Wells Fargo and Chase Systems posts on darknet forums under the username Rosalind CPA, and files containing stolen Social Security numbers. I am submitting this anonymously out of fear of retaliation, but I urge you to investigate immediately. Ms. Hart represents a threat to public safety and the integrity of the accounting profession. A concerned citizen." My hands went numb. The next pages were the screenshots the anonymous sender had provided. Terminal windows showing commands I'd never typed, Metasploit exploits, Nmap scans, SQL injection attacks. A darknet forum post under the username Rosalind CPA bragging about penetrating bank security systems. An Excel spreadsheet containing 200 Social Security numbers with corresponding names and addresses. Every piece of evidence was fake, every single one. But it looked real. God, it looked so real. The final document in the folder was a letter from the South Carolina Board of Accountancy, dated February 12, 2024. Dear Ms. Hart, the South Carolina Board of Accountancy has received a complaint alleging that you have engaged in criminal activity involving computer fraud and identity theft. Based on the evidence provided, we are immediately suspending your CPA license SC47829, pending a full investigation. You are prohibited from practicing as a certified public accountant in South Carolina until this matter is resolved. You have 30 days to respond in writing with any evidence in your defense. Failure to respond will result in permanent revocation of your license. Sincerely, Margaret, Executive Director, SC Board of Accountancy. I remembered getting that letter, remembered opening it at my kitchen table while Lily ate cereal before school, remembered reading it 3 times before my brain could process what it meant. My license suspended, effective immediately. Everything I'd worked for 12 years of education certifications, building a practice from nothing gone in one paragraph. February 2024 had been the worst month of my life. I'd lost 3 major clients within a week of the suspension. A hospital system, a law firm, and a real estate development company, contracts worth a combined $120,000. They'd all sent polite emails saying they couldn't risk being associated with someone under investigation for computer crimes. I understood. I didn't blame them, but it had nearly destroyed me. I'd hired Linda Russo, the best defense attorney in Charleston, to fight the suspension. She'd cost $50,000 I didn't have. I'd taken out a loan against my house to pay her retainer. Linda had promised to prove the accusations were false, but she'd warned me professional license boards moved slowly. The investigation could take months, maybe a year. I couldn't wait a year. I'd needed my license to work. Without it, I was just another unemployed single mother with a mortgage she couldn't pay. I remembered sitting in Linda's office listening to her explain the appeals process and feeling like I was drowning. Remembered driving home and sitting in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes, unable to move, unable to breathe. Remembered Lily knocking on the car window, asking if I was okay. I remembered lying to her, telling her everything was fine. I hadn't slept for 3 weeks straight. Every night I'd lain awake calculating how long before we lost the house, before I couldn't afford Lily's school fees, before we were living in my car. I'd stopped eating, lost 12 pounds, started having panic attacks so severe I'd had to pull over while driving. And through it all, I'd blame myself. Thought maybe someone had hacked my computer and I'd been careless with my passwords. Thought maybe I'd clicked a phishing link and compromised my system. Thought it was my fault. It hadn't been my fault. It had been Peyton. Again. A yellow sticky note was attached to Emily's report, Michael's handwriting in blue ink. Rosalind, I hired Emily to examine your laptop the week you got suspended. I knew you didn't hack anyone. I knew this was Peyton. Emily's report proves it. Read it. Trust what you find. You are not crazy. You are not a criminal. You are my daughter, and I should have protected you better. I'm sorry, Dad. I started crying before I finished reading. Michael had known. In February, when I'd been spiraling into panic attacks and insomnia and thoughts I'd never admitted to anyone, Michael had quietly hired Emily Gray to investigate. He'd paid $15,000 out of his retirement savings to prove what he already believed, that I was innocent. He'd never told me, never said a word. He'd just collected evidence and waited for the right moment to show me the truth. I picked up Emily's report with trembling hands. 50 pages spiral bound, dated February 28, 2024. The title page read, Forensic Analysis, Rosalind Hart Laptop, Serial XPS-4, 7829. Prepared by Emily Gray, CFCENCE, Digital Forensic Specialist. The table of contents listed sections I didn't fully understand: Trojan analysis, file metadata examination, network traffic logs, timeline reconstruction, honeypot results. But I understood the conclusion on page 3, summary. All evidence of alleged hacking activity was fabricated post-creation by malware identified as svchost32.exe Trojan. Metadata indicates files created on external system Peyton PC on December 10, 2023, 5 days before installation on subject laptop via USB device, December 15, 2023. Subject Rosalind Hart could not have committed alleged crimes as logs predate events by 34 days. Recommend criminal investigation of Peyton O. Hart for computer fraud, evidence tampering, and harassment. I read it twice. 3 times. The words blurred through my tears. Emily had proven it. Proven that every screenshot, every terminal log, every piece of evidence the board had received was fake. Created on Peyton's computer in December, installed on mine 5 days before Christmas, when Peyton had borrowed my laptop for 15 minutes. The same Christmas where she'd installed the calendar Trojan. She'd used the same visit to plant evidence of crimes I'd never committed. What did Emily find on my laptop that proved my innocence? I wiped my eyes and turned to page 1. I was about to find out. I read Emily's report straight through. 50 pages of forensic analysis that proved what I'd known but couldn't prove I was innocent. Peyton had framed me. By 4 p.m. Friday, I understood exactly how she'd done it. The Trojan was called svchost32.exe, designed to look like a legitimate Windows system file. The real file, svchost.exe, runs critical processes on every Windows computer. Peyton had added one character and hidden her malware in plain sight. Emily had found it in my System 32 folder disguised among hundreds of other files with hidden attributes. I'd had malware on my laptop for 3 months and never knew. The Trojans' function create fake evidence of criminal hacking and make it look like I'd done it. The fake logs were in my app data folder buried in a temp directory. 3 files each simulating a bank security breach. The first showed terminal commands allegedly used to penetrate Bank of America's network on January 15, 2024. Metasploit exploits, SQL injection attempts, commands I'd never typed. The second targeted Wells Fargo, dated January 18th. Vulnerability scans, password dumps, data exfiltration logs. The third covered Chase, dated January 20th. This one included 200 fabricated Social Security numbers and bank account details formatted to look like stolen customer data. Emily had included screenshots. The logs looked real. If I hadn't read her forensic breakdown, I would have believed I'd written them. But the Trojan had created them automatically pulling from templates on Peyton's computer, then modified timestamps to appear recent. The files also connected periodically to IP address 192.168.1, 45 Peyton's home network at our parents' house. Peyton had maintained an active connection to my laptop, monitoring the planted evidence, waiting for the right moment. That moment came in February when she sent the anonymous email to the Board of Accountancy. The USB log was damning. Windows keeps records of every device plugged in, and Emily had pulled my complete history. December 15, 2023, 3:45 p.m. USB device connected. Peyton flash, SanDisk 32, gigabytes, flash drive. File transfer 3:47 p.m. svhos32.exe, copied to system 32. Malware activated 3:52 p.m. I remembered that day, December 15th, 2 weeks before Christmas. Barbara was hosting a holiday party. Peyton had arrived with a new MacBook Pro, unusually friendly, asking about Lily's recital and my business. She'd asked to borrow my laptop, said her new MacBook wouldn't connect to Dad's printer. Could she use mine for 10 minutes? I'd said yes, we were family. She'd taken it to the guest room. I'd gone back to help Mom with appetizers. 10 minutes later, Peyton returned my laptop with a smile. I'd never suspected. But Emily had found something more damning than the USB log. She'd found the metadata. Every digital file contains hidden information about when it was created, who created it, and what computer it came from. Metadata tells the truth when everything else is a lie. The metadata on those fake logs told a story Peyton hadn't intended anyone to read. File creator Peyton-PC /Peyton. Date created December 10th, 2023, 11:47 p.m. Computer name, Peyton PC. The files had been created on Peyton's computer 5 days before she'd installed them on mine, 34 days before the alleged hacking activity they claimed to document. Peyton had fabricated evidence of crimes that hadn't happened yet. She'd built fake logs on December 10th, showing hacking attempts supposedly occurring in mid-January, then backdated the files. It was impossible, provably impossible. And it proved premeditation. Peyton had planned this for weeks, created the malware, built the fake evidence, waited for an opportunity to install it, then waited 3 more months before deploying it, timing her anonymous tip for maximum damage during tax season. Emily's conclusion was printed in bold on page 47. All evidence of alleged hacking activity is fabricated. File metadata conclusively proves logs were created prior to alleged crimes by 34 days on external system registered to suspect Peyton Hart. Subject Rosalind Hart is innocent. Recommend criminal charges against Peyton Hart for computer fraud, evidence tampering, identity theft, and harassment. I closed the report and sat in silence. Peyton had tried to have me arrested. She'd planted evidence of federal crimes, hacking financial institutions, stealing customer data crimes, carrying 10 to 20 years in prison. She hadn't wanted to ruin my career. She'd wanted me in prison. If Emily hadn't found the metadata, if Michael hadn't hired her, if the timestamps hadn't been impossible, I would be in federal prison right now, and Lily would be alone. My hands started shaking, but this time it wasn't fear. It was rage. Cold, focused rage. If Peyton had planted evidence in December, what had she been planning to do next? Had the board complaint been her endgame, or just the beginning? I picked up my phone and called Michael. I read Emily's report, I said, and Peyton tried to frame me for federal crimes. She wanted me in prison. Michael was quiet. I know. Why didn't you tell me in February? Because you were barely holding on. I couldn't add that weight. I needed you to survive first. Then we'd deal with Peyton. We're dealing with her now, I said. What's in the 3rd folder? Open it, Michael said quietly. But Rosalind, sit down first. Sunday morning, I called Emily before I opened the 3rd folder. Something Michael had said kept echoing in my head, sit down first. Whatever was in that folder was worse than career sabotage and attempted license revocation. I needed to be ready, and I needed more evidence. Emily, I said when she answered, if Peyton still has access to my laptop, can we catch her using it? You want to set a trap. It wasn't a question. I want proof she's still actively hacking me. Proof we can show the FBI. Emily was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, I can do that, it's called a honeypot. We create a file that's too tempting for her to resist, then monitor everything she does when she accesses it. Screen recording, keylogging, network traffic analysis. If she takes the bait, we'll have video evidence of her committing computer fraud in real time. How long will it take? I can set it up today. Then we wait and see if she bites. Do it. 2 hours later, Emily arrived at my house with her laptop and a hardware keylogger, a small device that plugged into my USB port and recorded every keystroke. She installed hidden screen recording software that would activate the moment Peyton's backdoor Trojan connected to my laptop. Then she created the bait. The file was called defense-strategy-final.docs, saved prominently on my desktop, where Peyton couldn't miss it during her routine surveillance. Emily opened the document and typed, "Confidential Attorney Work Product. Defense Strategy. Rosalind Hart versus Peyton Hart. Summary comprehensive evidence package prepared for filing with FBI Cybercrimes Division and South Carolina Attorney General. Evidence includes forensic reports, metadata analysis, witness statements, and financial records proving systematic harassment and computer fraud by Peyton Olivia Hart, spanning 5 years. FBI meeting scheduled April 1st, 2024, 10 a.m., Charleston Field Office 1 Justice Way. Criminal charges to be filed: Computer Fraud and Abuse Act violations, identity theft, evidence tampering, fraud conspiracy. Anticipated outcome: federal indictment by May 2024. Think she'll buy it? Emily asked. She'll panic, I said. She won't be able to resist checking to see how much evidence we have. Good, then we've got her. Emily configured the monitoring software to send alerts to both our phones the moment Peyton accessed my laptop remotely. Then she left, and I waited. 24 hours. 48 hours. I checked my laptop every hour, opening and closing the fake document, making sure it stayed visible on my desktop. Emily sent texts throughout Monday and Tuesday, nothing yet. Still monitoring. Be patient. By Tuesday night, I'd nearly given up. Maybe Peyton had gotten spooked. Maybe she'd realized I was building a case and had backed off. Then, at 2:37 Wednesday morning, my phone exploded with alerts. Honeypot activated, remote access detected, recording in progress. I called Emily, immediately, hands shaking. She's in... Emily said, her voice sharp with focus. I'm watching the screen recording in real time. She just opened your laptop remotely from IP 192.168.1.45, your parents' house. She's navigating to the desktop, opening the document now. Can you see what she's doing? Every movement, every keystroke. Hold on, I'm taking notes. I sat in my dark bedroom, phone pressed to my ear, listening to Emily narrate what Peyton was doing to my computer from 15 miles away. She's reading the document, scrolling slowly. She's been on page 1 for 90 seconds. Now page 2. She's taking screenshots. I just captured her hitting print screen 4 times. She's copying the file to a USB drive. Now she's minimizing the document and opening Notepad. Why Notepad? She's writing something. Hold on. Emily was silent for 30 seconds. Jesus Christ, she's creating another fake log file. She's literally making up more evidence to frame you right now, even after reading that you're planning to report her to the FBI. My stomach turned. She can't stop. No, Emily said quietly. She can't. This is obsession. She knows she's caught and she's still trying to bury you. The screen recording captured 18 minutes of Peyton's activity. When Emily sent me the video file Thursday morning, I watched it 3 times, barely breathing. The video showed everything. Peyton's cursor moving across my desktop, the moment she opened Defense Strategy Final.docs. Her slow, methodical scrolling through the fake document, she'd read every word, the screenshots, the file copy, then the notepad window opening and Peyton's fingers typing. Rosalind BOFA hack v2.txt. January 15th, 2024, 2:47 a.m. Successful penetration of Bank of America customer database. Downloaded 450 SSN records payment. Received Bitcoin wallet. 1A2B 3C4D. She was creating version 2 of evidence that had already been proven fake. She was doubling down. But Emily had also captured something else. The keylogger had recorded Peyton's activity after she finished reading the fake document. She'd opened Google Chrome and searched. How to delete forensic evidence remotely? Can police trace Trojan to source? Anonymize IP address retroactively. 3 searches that proved consciousness of guilt. Peyton knew she'd committed crimes. She knew she'd left evidence. And she was desperately searching for ways to erase her tracks while simultaneously creating more fake evidence against me. Emily's final report was 80 pages and included everything the 18-minute screen recording video, time-stamped down to the second. IP logs showing the connection from 192.168.1.45. MAC address D8BBC13F92. A1 traced to a laptop registered to Peyton Olivia Hart. Network packet captures showing the Trojan backdoor communication. The keylogger file with Peyton's Google searches. And the original Trojan source code with metadata proving it had been compiled on Peyton-PC using Visual Studio 2022 on December 10th, 2023. "This is bulletproof," Emily said when she handed me the report Thursday afternoon. "Peyton Hart hacked your computer-planted fake evidence, maintained remote access for months, and we caught her in the act. A federal prosecutor would salivate over this case." I sat in my kitchen staring at 80 pages of proof that my sister had tried to destroy me. Proof that she'd planned it for weeks. Proof that even when she knew I was fighting back, she couldn't stop herself from attacking. She tried to ruin my career. I said, my voice hollow. She tried to have my license revoked. She tried to have me arrested for federal crimes, and she almost succeeded. Emily put her hand on my shoulder. "But she didn't. You fought back. You found the truth. And now you have evidence that will put her in prison." I started crying. Not from sadness, from exhaustion and relief and rage all tangled together. 5 years. 5 years of Peyton systematically destroying everything I'd built, and I'd blamed myself for all of it. My phone rang. "Michael, did Emily finish the report?" he asked. "I have it. 80 pages, video evidence. Peyton accessed my laptop remotely on Wednesday, and we caught everything." "Good." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "Honey, I'm so proud of you. You didn't give up. You didn't let her win. Daddy, she almost did win. If you hadn't collected evidence, if you hadn't hired Emily, but I did, and you survived, and now we have enough to stop her." He paused. "Rosalind, it's time. Open the 3rd folder." My hands were shaking again. "What's in it?" "The worst thing Peyton ever did to you. The reason I'm divorcing your mother. The reason I'll never forgive either of them." His voice cracked. "Sit down, honey, and open the folder." I pulled the 3rd folder toward me. The label read, "Kidnapping and Attempted Murder, August 2023. The room tilted. What could be worse than sabotaging my career and trying to revoke my license? I was about to find out. Friday afternoon, I opened the 3rd folder with shaking hands. I'd been awake all night watching Peyton hack my computer, watching her create more fake evidence even after discovering I planned to report her to the FBI. I'd thought I understood the depth of her hatred. I'd been wrong. The folder was thinner than the others. The label read Northwestern Kellogg MBA Scholarship Theft, 2009. 15 years ago. I'd been 24, fresh out of undergrad with my accounting degree, working at a small Charleston firm for $42,000 a year. I'd applied to Northwestern's MBA program on a whim, never believing I'd get in. Kellogg was one of the top 5 business schools in the country. People like me didn't get into Kellogg, but I'd tried anyway, and I'd waited, checking my email, obsessively refreshing my inbox 20 times a day. The letter never came. Eventually, I'd assumed I'd been rejected and forgotten. I'd moved on, taken the CPA exam, built a freelance practice, married, had Lily, divorced, survived, and I'd never known. The first document was a letter on cream-colored paper, slightly yellowed with age, Northwestern University letterhead, an embossed seal, dated April 15, 2009. Dear Ms. Rosalind Marie Hart, I'm delighted to inform you that you have been accepted to the Kellogg School of Management MBA program class of 2011. Furthermore, I am pleased to award you the Hart Family Scholarship, a full merit-based scholarship covering tuition fees and living stipend for 2 years. Total value $185,000. This scholarship was established by the Hart family of Charleston to support exceptional students from the Low Country pursuing graduate business education. The committee was impressed by your academic record professional experience and commitment to ethical accounting practices. We look forward to welcoming you to Kellogg in September 2009. Sincerely, Dean Margaret Wilson. I read it 3 times before my brain processed the words. Accepted. Full scholarship, $185,000. The Hart Family Scholarship, my family, a scholarship established by my grandfather, and I'd won it. I'd been good enough, smart enough, and I'd never known. The next page was an email server log from Northwestern's IT department dated October 2023. It went back 15 years. Email sent to rosalind.hart2009@gmail.com. Date sent April 15, 2009, 4:47 p.m. Central. Subject acceptance to Kellogg MBA program. First opened April 16, 2009, 2:37 a.m. Eastern. IP address 173.79.4, 5.128, Charleston, SC. 2:37 a.m. Peyton's signature time. The same IP Emily had found in the career sabotage emails. The same IP from the honeypot trap. Peyton had opened my acceptance email at 2 in the morning while I slept completely unaware that my future had just arrived. And then she deleted it. The next page was a screenshot of an email sent from my account 15 minutes later at 2:52 a.m. Dear Admissions Committee, I regret to inform you that I am declining the Hart Family Scholarship and my acceptance to the Kellogg MBA program. I have decided to pursue other opportunities. Thank you for your consideration. Rosalind Hart. I'd never written those words, never sent that email, never made that decision. Peyton had logged into my Gmail. My password was probably something stupid, like Lily 2009 opened my acceptance. Read that I'd won a full scholarship to one of the best MBA programs in the country, and within 15 minutes had declined it and deleted every trace from my inbox. By the time I'd woken up on April 16, 2009, my future had been stolen. I remembered that spring, checking email every morning, hoping for news. By May, I'd given up, assumed I'd been rejected. It happened sometimes. I'd been disappointed, but not surprised. I'd never really believed I was good enough, except I had been good enough. They'd chosen me, given me a scholarship worth $185,000, and Peyton had taken it with 3 sentences. I started calculating. MBA graduates from top programs like Kellogg average starting salaries around $180,000. I'd been making $42,000 in 2009. If I'd gone to Northwestern, graduated in 2011, landed a consulting job. The numbers were staggering. Conservative estimate $85,000 per year salary difference compounded over 15 years. $1.9 million in lost income. Add the scholarship, $185,000. Total $2.1 million. Peyton had cost me $2 million with one email. $2 million I could have used to give Lily a better life. To not lie awake wondering how I'd pay the mortgage. To not take out a loan against my house when my license was suspended. $2 million, 15 years of financial security, a career I'd dreamed about. A future I'd never known was mine. She stole my dream. She stole my future. And for what jealousy spite. I thought about Lily, raising her alone on a freelancer's income, shopping at Target, driving a 10-year-old Honda, saying no to school trips because we couldn't afford them. The nights I'd cried in my car wondering if I was failing her, if I'd gone to Northwestern, if I'd had that MBA, if I'd had that career and salary. Lily's childhood would have been completely different. We would have been secure. I could have given her everything instead of everything I could barely afford. Peyton hadn't just stolen from me. She'd stolen from Lily, too. I sat at my desk sobbing, grieving for a life I'd never known I could have had. Grieving for the Rosalind who'd been good enough, smart enough, chosen, and who'd never been allowed to know it. It wasn't my fault. For 15 years, I'd believed I wasn't good enough. And I'd been wrong. I'd been good enough all along. How did Dad find this letter after 15 years? The question cut through my grief. This was a physical letter mailed in April 2009. Where had it been? How had Michael found it? And why had he waited until now? I picked up my phone and called him. "You found the scholarship folder," Michael said before I could speak. My voice was hoarse. "How did you find the letter? It's been 15 years. October 2023, Michael said quietly. "I found it in Peyton's room." I drove to Michael's apartment Saturday evening with the Northwestern letter in my passenger seat. I couldn't stop looking at it, cream paper embossed seal Dean Wilson's signature. Proof that I'd been good enough 15 years ago. Proof that Peyton had stolen it. Michael lived in a modest one-bedroom in Mount Pleasant, 10 minutes from my house. The rent was $1,200 a month, half what he and Barbara had paid for their mortgage before the divorce. He'd moved out 3 months ago, taking only his clothes, his tools, and a dozen framed photos of Lily. No photos of Barbara, no photos of Peyton. When I knocked, he answered immediately as if he'd been waiting by the door. "Come in, honey." The apartment was sparse. A couch from Goodwill, a small kitchen table, Lily's photos covering one wall, recitals, birthdays, school pictures from kindergarten through 6th grade. In every single photo, Lily was smiling. Michael looked older than he had at the recital 2 weeks ago. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying secrets for too long. "Tell me," I said. "Tell me how you found the letter." He sat down heavily on the couch and gestured for me to join him. October 2023, he began. Peyton had moved out in September, finally got her own place downtown after living with us until she was 33. Your mother asked me to clean out Peyton's old bedroom so she could turn it into a home office. I remembered that room. Pink walls, trophies from pageants, photos of Peyton with celebrities she'd met at corporate events, carefully arranged to look like close friendships. "I was cleaning the closet," Michael continued, "moving boxes, old clothes, shoes she hadn't worn in years. And in the back corner, behind a stack of winter coats, I found a Nike shoebox." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, and handed it to me. The photo showed a closet shelf, a white shoebox with the orange Nike swoosh dusty and slightly crushed on one side. The kind of box everyone has in their house filled with old receipts or batteries or forgotten things. "I almost didn't open it," Michael said. "Figured it was old shoes, but something made me look." He swiped to the next photo, the shoebox open. Inside stacks of envelopes bound with rubber bands, some yellowed with age, some newer. 28 letters, Michael said quietly. 28 pieces of mail addressed to you that Peyton had stolen from our mailbox over 15 years. I stared at the photo. 28. The Northwestern letter was on top, still sealed. She'd never even opened it, just took it from the mailbox the day it arrived and hid it. He swiped again. Photo after photo of envelopes. "My name on everyone." "There was a job offer from Deloitte," Michael said. $78,000 starting salary sent in 2011. You never saw it. "A wedding invitation from your college roommate, Sarah, in 2013. You told me you didn't know why she'd stopped talking to you. She thought you'd ignored her wedding. There was a birthday card from your grandmother in 2015 with a $100 check inside. She died thinking you'd never acknowledged it." My hands started shaking. "She stole my mail for 15 years. More than that. She stole your relationships, your opportunities, your connections." Michael's voice cracked. I photographed every letter. Then I put the box back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront Peyton, didn't tell Barbara I needed to be smart about this. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out louder than I'd intended. "You found this in October. It's March now. 5 months, Dad. 5 months I could have known." "Because I needed proof," Michael said. "The letters were evidence, but I needed more. I needed to prove Peyton had opened your Northwestern acceptance email before you did. I needed IP logs, email server records, the kind of digital evidence that couldn't be disputed." He stood up, paced to the window. "I contacted Northwestern through Linda Russo in November, asked them to pull email server logs from 2009. Do you know how long it takes a university to process a legal records request? 4 months. 4 months of bureaucracy and privacy waivers and legal justifications. You hired Linda in November. I'd thought I'd hired her in February when my license was suspended. I hired her first," Michael said. Paid her $50,000 out of my retirement to get those Northwestern records and start building a case. When your license got suspended in February, I told Linda to help you with that too. She was already on retainer. I couldn't speak. I knew if I told you about the letters without ironclad proof, Barbara would close ranks around Peyton. She'd claim you were making it up, claim Peyton found the letters and was holding them for safekeeping. She'd twist it somehow, she always does. And then Peyton would destroy the evidence and we'd have nothing. So you let me suffer, I whispered. You let me think I wasn't good enough for Northwestern. You let me struggle for 15 years. I know. Michael's voice broke. Honey, I know. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. I should have confronted Peyton in 2009, should have checked on you more carefully, should have suspected something when you told me you'd been rejected from Kellogg, but I didn't. I trusted that your mother and your sister loved you the way I did, and I was wrong. He turned to face me and I saw tears on his weathered face. When I found those letters in October, I realized I'd failed you for 15 years. I'd been passive, conflict-averse. I'd let Barbara control our family because I didn't want to fight, and you paid the price. He wiped his eyes roughly, so I decided no more. I was going to collect every piece of evidence, build an airtight case, and then I was going to make sure Peyton and Barbara could never hurt you again. That's why the 12 folders, I said. That's why the 12 folders. I've been documenting Peyton's crimes since 2012 every time I suspected something was wrong, but couldn't prove it. The career sabotage, the license attack, all of it. But the scholarship theft, that's when I knew for certain. That's when I started the divorce. That's when I decided to act. I stood up and hugged him. My father, who'd spent 30 years as a U.S. Marshal tracking criminals, had spent 3 years tracking his own daughter to protect me. You saved me, Dad, I whispered. I should have saved you 15 years ago. We stood there for a long time, both of us crying. Finally, I pulled back. You said you've been collecting evidence since 2012. What else is in those folders? Michael's expression darkened. 9 more folders, Rosalind. 9 more crimes. What's the worst one? He was quiet for a long moment. Then the kidnapping. August 2023. Peyton tried to have Lily killed. The room tilted. Sit down, Michael said gently, and I'll tell you everything. I couldn't sleep Monday night. I'd left Michael's apartment at 9 p.m., driven home in a daze, and lain in bed staring at the ceiling until 3 in the morning. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Northwestern letter, the cream paper, the embossed seal, the words I'd never been allowed to read. At 3:17 a.m., I gave up on sleep, went to my home office, and opened Excel. I'm a forensic accountant. When the world doesn't make sense, I build spreadsheets. Numbers don't lie. Numbers can be organized, analyzed, quantified. Grief can't. Loss can't. But financial damage can. I needed to see exactly what Peyton had stolen from me. I started with column headers year, MBA salary projected, actual income, annual gap, cumulative loss, row 1 2011. If I'd gone to Kellogg, graduated in 2011, I would have started at a consulting firm or Fortune 500 company. Average starting salary for Kellogg MBA grads in 2011, $180,000. I typed it in. Actual income 2011, $42,000. Working freelance after being fired from my firm job in 2010. Gap $138,000. Row 2 2012. MBA salary with 1 year experience, $195,000. Actual $48,000 freelance, heavily pregnant, losing clients who didn't want to work with someone about to take maternity leave. Gap $147,000. I kept going, year after year. The MBA salary column climbed steadily. Promotions, raises, bonuses. Partner track at a consulting firm. VP at a corporation. The kind of career trajectory that came with a top 5 MBA. The actual income column climbed too, but slowly. Freelance rates inching up, good years and bad years. The ceiling that comes when you're a solo practitioner with no employees, no scale, no prestigious degree to command premium fees. By 2024, row 14, the gap was devastating. MBA salary $280,000, actual income $95,000, annual gap $185,000. I added a formula in column E for compound interest. 5% annual return conservative, the kind of growth even a basic index fund would give over 14 years. The money I could have saved and invested if I'd had that MBA salary instead of scraping by as a freelancer. I typed equals sum in the bottom row and hit enter. Total lost income $1,190,000. Compound interest opportunity cost $715,000. Scholarship value $185,000. Grand total $2,090,000. $2.1 million. That's what Peyton had stolen from me with one email at 2:37 in the morning 15 years ago. I stared at the number until it blurred. $2 million I could have used to give Lily private school, music tutors, college savings, a house in a better neighborhood. $2 million that would have meant I never had to cry in my car wondering if I could afford her violin lessons. Never had to take out a loan against my house to pay Linda Russo. Never had to choose between Lily's school trip and the mortgage payment. $2 million, 15 years of security I'd never had. I remembered 2009. I'd been 24 working at a small accounting firm living in a studio apartment with furniture from Goodwill. I'd applied to Kellogg on a whim, never really believing I'd get in. When March turned to April turned to May, and I hadn't heard anything, I'd assumed rejection. I'd cried for 2 weeks, called my dad and told him I wasn't good enough, applied for the CPA exam instead and told myself an MBA was a stupid dream anyway. And the whole time the acceptance letter had been hidden in Peyton's closet. I remembered 2012, 27 years old, 6 months pregnant with Lily, working at a mid-size firm that had promised me maternity leave. Then the senior partner had called me into his office 3 weeks before my due date and said they were restructuring, and my position was no longer necessary. It was illegal firing someone for pregnancy violated federal law, but the firm had fewer than 50 employees, which exempted them from FMLA. And I didn't have money for a lawyer. I was about to be a single mother with a newborn and no income. If I'd had my MBA, if I'd been working at Deloitte or McKinsey with 6 figures in the bank and employment protections, they never would have dared. I remembered 2013 through 2024. 11 years of freelance hustle, building a client base from nothing, working 16-hour days while Lily napped, bringing her to client meetings in a carrier because I couldn't afford childcare, shopping at Target for her clothes, driving a Honda Civic that broke down twice a year, saying no to violin summer camps that cost $3,000, watching other kids at her orchestra wear designer clothes while Lily wore Old Navy. I'd done my best. I'd kept us afloat. But if I'd had that MBA, if Peyton hadn't stolen it, Lily's childhood would have been completely different. I opened my email and started typing. To admissions@kellogg.northwestern.edu. Subject verification request. 2009 acceptance. Dear Admissions Office, I'm writing to request official verification of my acceptance to the Kellogg School of Management MBA program class of 2011 and the Hart Family Scholarship awarded April 2009. I recently discovered that my acceptance letter was intercepted and hidden by a family member, and I never received notification. I understand the acceptance and scholarship cannot be reinstated 15 years later, but I need official confirmation for legal proceedings against the individual who stole this opportunity. Attached is a copy of the original acceptance letter, which was recovered in October 2023. Please confirm. My acceptance to Kellogg MBA Class of 2011 Hart Family Scholarship Award of $185,000. Email records showing acceptance sent to rosalind.hart2009@gmail.com on April 15, 2009. Thank you. Rosalind Hart CPACFE. I attached Michael's photo of the Northwestern letter and hit send. I knew they couldn't give me the scholarship back, couldn't let me enroll 15 years late, couldn't undo what Peyton had done. But I needed official confirmation, needed Northwestern to acknowledge in writing that I'd been good enough, that I'd earned it, that it had been stolen. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael, timestamped 8:47 p.m. I'd been so absorbed in the spreadsheet, I hadn't noticed 5 hours had passed. Rosalind, I know you're hurting. I know the scholarship loss feels like the worst thing Peyton did. But there's one more folder I need you to see, the heaviest one. Can we meet tomorrow before you open it? I need to prepare you. Dad. I looked at my desk. 9 folders left. 9 more crimes Peyton had committed over 15 years. What could be heavier than stealing $2 million? What could be worse than taking away my future? My career, 15 years of the life Lily and I could have had. I texted back, "What's in the folder?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, the kidnapping, August 2023. I'll explain tomorrow. Please don't open it tonight. Trust me. I stared at my phone. Kidnapping, August 2023, 7 months ago. What had happened in August that I didn't know about? And then I remembered. August 2023. Lily had been at music camp for a week. She'd come home quiet, withdrawn. I thought she was homesick. She'd had nightmares for 2 months after. I'd thought it was stress from starting 7th grade. What if it hadn't been camp? What if something else had happened? What had Peyton done to my daughter? I drove to Michael's apartment Wednesday morning with shaking hands. I'd spent all night awake trying to remember August 2023, trying to piece together what had happened to Lily while I'd thought she was safe at music camp. Michael opened the door before I could knock. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. "Come in, honey." The folder was on the kitchen table, thicker than the others. The label read, "Kidnapping and Attempted Murder, August 2023. I stared at it. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. "Sit down," Michael said gently, pulling out a chair. I sat. My legs wouldn't hold me much longer anyway. "This is why I divorced your mother," Michael said quietly. "This is why I moved out. This is why I will never forgive Peyton or Barbara." His voice cracked. "This is the worst thing they did." He pushed the folder toward me. "I'm here. You need to know what happened. You've been blocking it out for 7 months. I opened the folder with trembling hands. The first document was a printed email dated August 10th, 2023. Subject line, "Your daughter." "We have Lily. $2 million Bitcoin to wallet 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, 6F, 7G, 8H. 72 hours. No police or she dies." Below was a photo attachment. I clicked to the next page and saw it. Lily. My Lily. 12 years old, sitting on a concrete floor in a basement. Her hands were tied behind her back. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, a bruise on her left cheek. I made a sound I didn't recognize, raw and broken. "I can't." I tried to push the folder away, but Michael caught my hands. "I know, but you have to see it. You have to know what they did." I forced myself to look for 2 more seconds. Lily's eyes were wide with terror. She wore the same purple t-shirt from August 9th, the day I dropped her at what I thought was music camp, except she'd never made it to camp. I flipped past the photo. The next document was an FBI report, 50 pages, case number 2023-SC-4782, lead agent Sarah Torres. Summary on August 9th, 2023. Lily Marie Hart, age 12, was abducted from downtown Charleston en route to music camp. Subject held for 4 days by Marcus Cole, 38, ex-convict. Ransom demand $2 million issued. FBI rescue operation, August 13th, 2023. Subject recovered, 3 suspects arrested. Suspects: Peyton Olivia Hart, 33. Conspiracy to kidnap, attempted murder. Barbara Ann Hart, 65, conspiracy, aiding and abetting. Marcus Cole, 38, kidnapping, false imprisonment, assault, abducted. 4 days. Recovered. But Lily hadn't been unharmed. She'd had nightmares for 2 months, stopped talking about camp, flinched when I hugged her. I thought it was homesickness. The next pages were arrest warrants, 3 of them issued August 13th, 2023. United States of America versus Peyton Olivia Hart. United States of America versus Barbara Ann Hart. United States of America versus Marcus Cole. And finally, sentencing documents dated February 12th, 2024, 6 months ago, a trial I didn't remember attending. Peyton Olivia Hart, 45 years federal prison. Marcus Cole. 35 years federal prison. Barbara Ann Hart. 25 years federal prison. I don't remember, I whispered. I don't remember any of this. I remember August being bad, but you blocked it out, Michael said. The FBI psychologist said you had acute dissociative amnesia. Your brain couldn't process what happened to Lily, so it buried the details. You remember fragments that something bad happened, that Lily was scared, but not the kidnapping itself. I stared at him. Lily was kidnapped for 4 days, and I don't remember. You remember enough. The terror. FBI showing up. Lily brought home by agents. She wasn't the same after. Michael's eyes were wet. Your mind protected you, but now you need to know the truth. Tell me, I said. What happened? August 9th, you dropped Lily downtown for music camp, but Peyton had sent you a fake email a week earlier changing the drop-off location. The real camp was at the music hall. The fake location was 3 blocks away where Marcus Cole was waiting. My stomach turned. Peyton sent a fake email, using the orchestra's format. You had no reason to suspect. Michael pulled out a printed email. This is what she sent. Perfect formatting, the orchestra's logo, a note about new drop-off location due to construction. I remembered receiving it, remembered thinking nothing of it. Marcus grabbed Lily the moment you drove away. Michael continued. Chloroform, she was unconscious in seconds. Van to a cabin in Sumter National Forest, 90 miles from Charleston. Who is Marcus Cole? Ex-convict Peyton hired. 20,000 cash, we have bank records. Released from prison 3 months earlier. Peyton found him through her event planning business. Why? The question came out as a sob. Why would Peyton kidnap Lily? To destroy you, Michael said simply. FBI found recordings Barbara and Peyton planning it in July. Barbara said if they eliminated Lily, you'd be too broken to fight back. You'd lose your will. They could take control of the trust fund, claim you were mentally unfit, have you institutionalized. I couldn't speak. My mother had planned to have my daughter killed so she could steal my inheritance and lock me away. But they didn't succeed, Michael said, gripping my hands. FBI traced the ransom email. I gave them surveillance footage of Peyton meeting Marcus. We found the cabin, August 13th, UFB. I rescued Lily. She was scared and hungry and traumatized, but alive. I don't remember the rescue. You were there. You held her while she cried, but your mind blocked it. Michael wiped his eyes. The trial was January and February. You testified. Lily testified. All 3 convicted. That's when I filed for divorce and moved out. I couldn't stay married to a woman who'd tried to murder my granddaughter. I sat in silence, staring at the folder. 45 years, 35 years, 25 years, my sister, my mother, both in federal prison for trying to kill my child. August 2023, the month I almost lost Lily forever. And I'd blocked it out so completely, I'd thought it was just a bad summer. I need to see her, I said suddenly. I need to see Lily right now. Michael nodded. She's at school, but yes. Go get her, hold her, and Rosalind. His voice broke. I'm sorry I didn't protect you both sooner. I hugged my father and left. August 2023, the month everything changed. The month I almost lost the only person who mattered. The month I didn't remember. Until now. I need to tell you what happened in August 2023. I need to remember, even though every part of me wants to forget. Michael said my mind blocked it out to protect me. But I can't stay protected anymore. I need to know the truth. Let me tell you what happened on August 9th. It started as a normal day. I woke up at 6, made Lily breakfast, scrambled eggs, and toast her favorite. She was excited about orchestra rehearsal. They were preparing for a showcase in September, and she'd been chosen for a solo. She talked about it the whole drive downtown. I dropped her off at 412 Meeting Street at 8:30. The email from Charleston Youth Orchestra had said the drop-off location changed due to construction at the music hall. I didn't question it. The email looked official. The orchestra's logo, professional formatting. Why would I suspect anything? I kissed Lily goodbye, told her I'd pick her up at 4 and drove to work. I didn't know I'd just dropped my daughter into a trap. At 3:28 that afternoon, Lily left the orchestra rehearsal, the real rehearsal at Charleston Music Hall on John Street, 3 blocks from where I'd dropped her. She'd walked there herself that morning, confused about why I'd left her at an empty lot, but she was 12 and resourceful, and she'd figured it out. Rehearsal ended at 3:15. Lily started walking home. It was 0.8 miles, 45 minutes. She'd done it a dozen times before. At 3:28 p.m., a gray van with no license plates pulled up beside her on Meeting Street. A man got out, 38 years old, 6 feet tall, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. Later, we'd learn his name was Marcus Cole, ex-convict, released from prison 3 months earlier, hired by my sister for $20,000 cash. He grabbed Lily from behind, one hand over her mouth. The other hand pressed a cloth soaked in chloroform against her face. She was unconscious in seconds. Marcus Cole put my daughter in the back of his van and drove away. I didn't know any of this yet. At 3:28, I was sitting at my desk reviewing a client's financial statements, completely unaware that my world was ending. At 4:15, I called Lily's phone. No answer. I wasn't worried yet. Sometimes she forgot to charge it. I called Charleston Music Hall. The receptionist said rehearsal had ended at 3:15. Lily had left with the other students. That's when I started to panic. I called her phone again and again and again. Voicemail every time. I got in my car and drove the route she would have walked, up Meeting Street, past the shops and restaurants, scanning every sidewalk, every corner, looking for her purple t-shirt. Nothing. At 4:32, I called 911. My daughter is missing. She left orchestra rehearsal at 3:15. She was walking home. She should have been home by 4. I can't find her. The dispatcher asked for a description. 12 years old, 5'2", brown hair, purple t-shirt with a music note on it, last seen downtown Charleston. At 5 p.m., Charleston Police Department issued an Amber Alert. My phone exploded with notifications. Every phone in Charleston received the same message, missing child, Lily Marie Hart, age 12, last seen downtown. I sat in my car on Meeting Street and sobbed. Police officers arrived, asked me questions I could barely answer. When did you last see her? What was she wearing? Did she seem upset? Did anyone suspicious approach her? I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I dropped her off at the wrong location because of a fake email, and now she was gone. They searched all night. K-9 units, helicopters, officers knocking on doors, checking security cameras, interviewing witnesses. I stayed awake sitting at my kitchen table with my phone praying it would ring. It didn't. At 7 a.m. on August 10th, I got an email. The subject line was 2 words, your daughter. I opened it with shaking hands. We have Lily, $2 million Bitcoin to wallet 1A2B 3C4D 5E 6F7 G8H9I. 72 hours. No police or she dies. Attached was a photo. Lily, sitting on a concrete floor in a dark basement. Her hands were tied behind her back with rope. Her face was dirty and streaked with tears. There was a bruise on her left cheek. She was crying. I screamed. I couldn't stop screaming. $2 million. I didn't have $2 million. I had maybe $30,000 in savings, my house equity, my retirement account. Even if I liquidated everything, I'd have maybe $200,000. Not even close. And the deadline, 72 hours. 3 days to find money I didn't have, or they'd kill my daughter. I collapsed on the floor hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The photo was burned into my brain. Lily tied up, crying. Alone in a basement somewhere while strangers decided whether she lived or died. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour. Time had stopped meaning anything. My phone rang. Michael. Rosalind. His voice was calm, steady. The voice he'd used for 30 years as a U.S. Marshal when he had to deliver bad news to families. Did you get an email? They have her. I could barely form words. They want $2 million. Dad, I don't have $2 million. I don't know what to do. I don't... Breathe, honey. Listen to me. Do not reply to that email. Do not contact them. I'm calling the FBI right now. They'll trace it. They'll find her. What if they can't? What if they will? Michael said firmly. Rosalind, I need you to trust me. The FBI has handled hundreds of kidnapping cases. They know what to do. I'm calling Sarah Torres. She's the best agent in the Charleston office. She'll coordinate the search. I can't lose her. I was crying so hard I could barely speak. Dad, I can't lose Lily. You won't. I promise you we will find her, but you need to stay calm. Can you do that? I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Yes. Good. I'm coming to your house. Don't leave. Don't answer any calls except from me or the FBI. We're going to bring Lily home. He hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor staring at the ransom email on my phone screen. $2 million, 72 hours. Who had taken my daughter? And how would we find her before the deadline ran out? The FBI arrived at 10 a.m. on August 10th, 2 hours after I received the ransom email, 2 hours after I'd seen the photo of Lily tied up in that basement. Agent Sarah Torres was 42 FBI for 18 years head of the Crimes Against Children Unit in Charleston. She had short gray hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of calm that comes from handling hundreds of cases like mine. She shook my hand and said 4 words that I clung to like a lifeline. We will find her. Sarah and her team, 3 agents, 2 tech specialists, set up a command center in my living room, laptops on my dining table, equipment I didn't understand tracking the ransom email, the Bitcoin wallet, any digital trace Peyton and her accomplice had left. The Bitcoin wallet was created August 5th. Sarah told me, pointing to a screen full of blockchain data I couldn't decipher. 4 days before the kidnapping. That's premeditation. Whoever took Lily planned this carefully. Can you trace it? I asked. We're working on it. Bitcoin isn't as anonymous as people think. Sarah's voice was steady, professional. The Proton Mail account was routed through a VPN, but we can narrow the origin point. Charleston area. That's good. It means they're close. They didn't take Lily far. That should have been comforting. Instead, it made everything worse. My daughter was somewhere within 50 miles of me, tied up, scared, and I couldn't reach her. Michael arrived at noon with a briefcase I recognized, the same leather case that had held 12 folders of evidence against Peyton. I have something for you, he told Sarah. He opened the briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. Security camera footage from my house, August 8th, 11 p.m., the night before the kidnapping. Sarah plugged the drive into her laptop. We watched in silence. The footage showed Peyton's BMW pulling up across the street from my house at 11:03 p.m. Peyton sat in the car for 45 minutes. At 11:21, she got out, walked to the edge of my driveway, and took photos of my house with her phone. At 11:34, she pulled out a notepad and wrote something down. At 11:48, she drove away. She was casing the house, Sarah said quietly, planning the kidnapping, figuring out when your daughter would be vulnerable. I felt sick. Michael wasn't finished. He pulled out bank records. Peyton withdrew $20,000 cash from Bank of America on August 6th, 2 days before she sat outside Rosalind's house. That's 10 times her normal withdrawal amount. I'm guessing that's payment for whoever took Lily. Sarah nodded, taking the documents. We'll follow up with the bank, see if surveillance cameras caught her with anyone. One more thing. Michael handed over a rental contract. Peyton rented a cabin in Sumter National Forest on August 8th, paid $1,200 cash for a week-long stay. She used a fake name, Patricia Henderson, but I had a handwriting analyst compare the signature to Peyton's. 94% match. Sarah's expression sharpened. Where's the cabin? 1,247 Forest Trail, Sumter National Forest, 90 miles northwest of Charleston. That's where Lily is, Sarah said immediately. She turned to her team. Get me satellite imagery of that property. I want every detail. And get a warrant. We're going in. I started crying, relief and terror all at once. They'd found her. But what if they were too late? What if Peyton had already? We have time, Sarah said, reading my face. The deadline is August 13th at 7 a.m. It's August 10th now. We have 3 days. We'll get her back. On August 11th, the FBI obtained a court order to wiretap Peyton's phone. They installed a GPS tracker on her car, and then we waited. The waiting was the worst part. 72 hours became 60, then 48. I sat in my living room with FBI agents watching laptops, listening to phone calls that weren't Peyton's, waiting for her to make a mistake. On August 12th at 2:17 p.m., Peyton called someone. Live call, one of the tech agents said. Recording now. Sarah handed me headphones. You might want to hear this. I put them on. Peyton's voice came through crystal clear. Did you check on the girl? A man's voice, rough, unfamiliar. Marcus Cole, though I didn't know his name yet. Yeah, she's crying a lot. Should I give her food? No. Peyton's voice was cold, flat, like she was discussing a broken appliance. Let her suffer. Rosalind needs to feel pain. If the sister doesn't pay by tomorrow morning, we dump her in the lake. Make it look like an accident. You sure? Marcus sounded uncertain. That's murder. I don't care. Peyton laughed. Actually laughed. She's just a kid. Rosalind will be destroyed. That's the point. I want her to spend the rest of her life knowing she failed, that she couldn't save her precious daughter. I ripped the headphones off and ran to the bathroom. I threw up until there was nothing left. Michael found me on the floor sobbing. She wants to kill Lily, I said. She doesn't want money. She wants my daughter dead. I know. Michael held me. But she's not going to succeed. Sarah's team is moving out tonight. They know exactly where the cabin is. They picked it up from background noise on the call. There's a lake nearby. They're going in tomorrow morning early before the deadline. What if they're too late? What if Peyton already... She won't, Michael said firmly. The deadline is tomorrow at 7 a.m. Peyton wants you to suffer as long as possible. She'll wait until the last minute. That gives FBI time. I wanted to believe him, but I just heard my sister's voice, cold and cheerful, discussing murdering my 12-year-old daughter like it was nothing. August 12th, 2 p.m., 57 hours since Lily was taken, 19 hours until the ransom deadline. We had less than a day left. Would the FBI reach her in time? I sat across from Michael in his small living room on April 3rd, staring at the 5th folder. Its label read FBI Rescue Operation, August 13th, 2023. My throat tightened. The therapist said my brain had locked away that morning to protect me, but now the memories clawed their way back. August 13th, 2023, 4:47 a.m., Sumter National Forest. The FBI bulletproof vest hung loose on my frame. I stood 200 yards from the gray cabin hidden behind a cluster of pine trees. Agent Sarah Torres crouched beside me, her hand firm on my shoulder. 12 SWAT officers surrounded the structure at 1,247 Forest Trail, their rifles trained on every window and door. The forest was silent except for my ragged breathing and the crackle of radios. Sarah had called me at 2 a.m. We found her. GPS tracker on Peyton's car led us here. Heat signature confirms 2 people inside, 1 adult, 1 child. The tracker. Michael had convinced a federal judge to authorize it on August 11th, hours after the wiretap captured Peyton, ordering Marcus to hurt Lily. FBI techs installed the device under Peyton's BMW at 11:47 that night, while she slept in her downtown condo. For 36 hours, they followed every movement. On August 12th at 8:15 in the evening, her car traveled 90 miles west to this exact location, idled near the cabin for 42 minutes, then returned to Charleston. She'd been checking on my daughter. At 5:12 a.m., the SWAT commander raised his fist. Then he dropped it. Go, go, go. The battering ram shattered the front door. 2 flashbangs exploded in blinding white bursts. Shouts of FBI on the ground tore through the dawn. I couldn't breathe. 18 seconds crawled by. Then a voice crackled over the radio. Suspect in custody, adult male armed, no shots fired. Marcus Cole. Sarah had shown me his file the night before, a 38-year-old ex-con with a snake tattoo curling up his neck, 3 priors for armed robbery, a taste for cocaine. Peyton had paid him $20,000 in cash withdrawn from her business account on August 6th in 4 separate ATM transactions to avoid flags. I broke free from Sarah's grip and ran. 2 officers were dragging Marcus out in flex cuffs, his face pressed into the dirt. He reeked of whiskey and sweat. Inside, agents swarmed the kitchen. On the table sat a Glock 9mm, 4 plastic bags of white powder, and $800 bills in a rubber band. Basement, an officer said, pointing to a heavy wooden door with a padlock. My heart stopped. A bolt cutter snapped the lock. The door swung open to reveal stairs descending into darkness. I pushed past the agents and stumbled down. A single bulb swung from a wire overhead, casting shadows on concrete walls, streaked with mold. and there, in the far corner, on a filthy mattress, was Lily. Yellow nylon rope bound her wrists so tightly the skin was raw. A black cloth covered her eyes. Her purple t-shirt, the one with the treble clef she'd worn to violin practice 5 days ago, was torn at the shoulder. Bruises mottled her forearms. She was shaking. "Lily," my voice cracked. She flinched, curling into herself. "Baby, it's Mom, it's me." I dropped to my knees and tore off the blindfold. Her eyes, swollen and red, blinked against the light. For 3 endless seconds, she stared at me as if I were a stranger. Then recognition flooded her face and she collapsed forward into my arms. "Mom!" The words came out broken, barely a whisper. "Aunt Peyton told that man to do this to hurt you." I held her so tight I thought I'd crack her ribs. We were both shaking now, both sobbing. An EMT appeared with scissors to cut the ropes and a thermal blanket. Sarah Torres radioed for the ambulance. "Victim located. Female 12, conscious and responsive. Dehydrated, multiple contusions. Inbound to MUSC in 20. 5:30 a.m. Charleston." While we huddled in that basement, a second FBI team had moved on Barbara Hart's home on Rutledge Avenue. At exactly 5:30, coordinated down to the second, agents breached the front and back doors. They found Barbara in the kitchen pouring coffee and Peyton upstairs in the guest bedroom. Both were handcuffed and read their rights. On the kitchen counter, agents photographed a yellow legal pad with Barbara's handwriting, "Hire M, $20,000, with a checkmark, cabin rental alias, with a checkmark. Draft ransom email with a checkmark, Bitcoin transfer unchecked, and disposal Laker Forest unchecked." In Peyton's room, forensic specialists bagged her MacBook Pro. The hard drive contained a file named Ransom Draft V3. DOCX, last saved August 8th at 11:47 p.m., 33 hours before the ransom email was sent from the anonymous Proton Mail account. Buried in her browser history, investigators found a Google search time-stamped August 7th, 2:34 a.m. "How to dispose of body in South Carolina." Sarah showed me screenshots later that afternoon after the doctors at the Medical University of South Carolina examined Lily. Dehydration, rope burns, bruising consistent with restraint. No fractures, no sexual assault. Physically, she would heal. The nightmares would last longer. Michael had been waiting in the hospital lobby when we arrived. He stood when he saw me, his face gray with exhaustion. I walked straight to him and collapsed against his chest. "How did you know to call them so fast?" I whispered. He stroked my hair. "I've been watching Peyton since July. I found a voice recording on her phone she'd rehearsed the ransom call. I didn't know when she'd act, so I hired a private investigator to follow her. When Lily disappeared, I gave the FBI everything I had." I pulled back to look at him. "You saved her." "I should have stopped it sooner," he said, his voice breaking. April the 3rd, 2024, Michael's apartment. I closed the folder and looked up at my father. He was 70 now, his hair white, his hands trembling slightly as he poured us both water. "Lily's safe," I said quietly, but knowing my own mother planned it. Michael nodded. "The prosecutor proved it at trial. Barbara orchestrated everything. Peyton was her weapon." I stared at the stack of folders still on the table. "What else is in there?" "The rest of the evidence," he said. "Wire transfers, text messages between them, a recording from July where Barbara told Peyton exactly how to do it. Lily was safe. But the truth about who masterminded her kidnapping my own mother was more horrifying than anything I could have imagined. Before I tell you who planned it all, who turned my own family into weapons against me, type family in the comments to show me you've stayed this long. This changes everything. Quick note, upcoming scenes include creative storytelling elements. If you'd rather skip dramatized content, now's your moment to exit gracefully. On April 4th, I returned to Michael's apartment. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. My hands shook as I poured coffee I wouldn't drink. The 5 folders we'd reviewed, career sabotage digital, framing the stolen scholarship, the kidnapping, the rescue, lay stacked on the table like evidence at a murder trial. But Michael had mentioned more. "There's one more," he said, quietly pulling a manila folder from his briefcase. This one was thicker than the others, its edges worn. The label read, Peyton Hart, The Complete Plan 2012 to 2024. I stared at my sister's name. "What is this Michael's face was gray. "The reason I filed for divorce. The reason I could never forgive your mother. Rosalind Payton didn't just act out of jealousy. She planned everything, and your mother knew and encouraged her every step of the way." He opened the folder. Inside were 12 years of transcripts audio files on labeled CDS printed emails and bank statements. The earliest document was dated March 2012, a voice recording time-stamped 11:47 p.m. Michael pressed play on a small recorder. Peyton's voice came through first cold and determined. "Mom, I need you to understand something. Rosalind doesn't deserve what she has. She's always been the victim, always gotten sympathy. I'm going to change that. I'm going to make sure she loses everything." Barbara's voice responded, not commanding but enabling. "Peyton, darling, I understand how you feel. Your sister has always been difficult. If you feel this is necessary, I won't stand in your way. What do you need from me? Just support and silence. Don't tell Dad, he wouldn't understand." "Of course, sweetheart, I'm with you, whatever you need to do." I felt sick. 2012, the year I was pregnant with Lily, the year I lost my job at the accounting firm and had to go freelance. I thought it was bad luck. But Peyton had been planning my destruction from the beginning. Michael fast-forwarded through more recordings, dozens of them. Peyton telling Barbara about stealing client emails in 2019, Peyton bragging about the digital framing in late 2023, and Barbara always praising her, always encouraging her, never once saying stop. But the most damning evidence wasn't Barbara giving orders. It was Peyton writing them herself. Michael pulled out a printed email. The subject line read, "The Lily Problem." It was dated July 5th, 2023, 1 month before the kidnapping. I read it with shaking hands. From Peyton Hart to Barbara Hart, subject "The Lily Problem." "Mom, I need to discuss something important. Lily is becoming an obstacle. As long as she exists, Rosalind has a reason to keep fighting. But if something happened to that child, if she disappeared in a way that destroyed Rosalind's credibility, everything would fall apart. I've been researching the Hart Family Trust. Did you know it's worth $9.5 million? The terms say, Rosalind inherits when you die, unless she's declared legally incompetent or an unfit parent. If Lily died due to parental negligence, I could petition the court to transfer the trust to me. You'd support that petition, wouldn't you? I found someone who can help. Marcus Cole, ex-convict, just released, needs money. I can pay him $20,000 to take Lily and hold her for ransom. When Rosalind can't pay and she won't be able to, he'll dispose of the body. We'll make it look like Rosalind's neglect-wrong drop-off location didn't supervise properly, let her daughter walk home alone. Rosalind will be destroyed, mentally, financially, legally, and we'll finally have what we deserve. I need you to say you'll support me, that you won't interfere, that you'll testify on my behalf if needed. Can I count on you? Love, Peyton. I stopped reading. The words blurred through my tears. Peyton had written this. Peyton had planned every detail. Peyton had decided my daughter needed to die. And Barbara had said yes. The next page was Barbara's reply sent 6 hours later. From Barbara Hart to Peyton Hart subject. Read the Lily problem. Peyton, you've thought this through carefully. I can see that. If you believe this is necessary, then I trust your judgment. You've always been the stronger one, the one who isn't afraid to do what needs to be done. I'll support you. I'll testify that Rosalind has always been unstable, a poor mother, neglectful. I'll help you petition for the trust, and I promise your father will never know I was involved. Be careful. Don't leave evidence, but know that I'm proud of you for taking control of your future. Love, Mom. Michael handed me another document, a legal memo from a Charleston estate attorney Barbara had consulted in June 2023. She'd asked about the Hart Family Trust on Peyton's behalf. The memo outlined exactly what Peyton had written in her email: how to prove parental unfitness, how to petition for asset reallocation, how to use a child's death to destroy the primary beneficiary. Barbara hadn't masterminded this, but she'd enabled it, researched it, supported it. Never once said, Peyton, this is murder. This is my granddaughter. Stop. The next documents were bank records. Wire transfers from Barbara to Peyton dating back to 2019. $20,000 here, $15,000 there. Payments labeled family support, business loan, holiday gift. But the dates aligned perfectly with every attack on my life. The career sabotage, the CPA license suspension, the kidnapping. Barbara hadn't ordered Peyton to destroy me, but she'd funded it, encouraged it, made it possible. Michael pulled out one more recording. July 15th, 2023, 10 days after Peyton's email. Peyton and Barbara on the phone. Peyton, I met with Marcus today. He'll do it. $20,000 cash, no questions asked. I rented a cabin under a fake name. Everything's ready. Barbara, and your father doesn't suspect anything. Peyton, Dad's clueless. He's too busy in his workshop. By the time he figures out what happened, it'll be too late. Barbara, good. Peyton, I want you to know I'm proud of you. Rosalind has taken enough from this family. You're taking back what's yours. Peyton, thanks, Mom. I couldn't do this without your support. The recording ended. I sat in silence, staring at the folder. Peyton had planned it all. Peyton had written the emails. Peyton had hired Marcus Cole. Peyton had rented the cabin. Peyton had orchestrated 15 years of sabotage and attempted murder. And Barbara had watched, encouraged, funded, enabled, never stopped her, never protected me, never chose her granddaughter over her golden child. I gave all of this to the FBI in February, Michael said, quietly. After Peyton and Barbara were arrested, the prosecutor used it at trial. Peyton got 45 years for being the mastermind. Barbara got 25 years for conspiracy and aiding and abetting. She didn't plan the crimes, but she made them possible, and that was enough. I couldn't speak. I stared at Peyton's email at Barbara's reply at 12 years of evidence that my sister had systematically destroyed my life while my mother cheered her on. On April 9th, 2024, the FBI filed additional charges against Barbara Ann Hart: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, wire fraud, aiding and abetting. The charges reflected her role, not the architect, but the enabler, the mother who could have stopped her daughter and chose not to. Agent Sarah Torres called me that afternoon. Peyton Hart is the primary defendant. She planned everything. Your mother's charges reflect her support role. But Rosalind, both of them are going to prison for a very long time. I hung up and sat alone in my living room. Lily was at school. The house was quiet. Peyton had wanted to destroy me for 15 years, had planned every attack, had decided my daughter needed to die so she could steal $9.5 million. And Barbara had said, I'm proud of you. How do you forgive that? How do you process that your sister is a monster and your mother chose to enable her instead of protect you? I couldn't. I sat there until the sun set, staring at the wall, and realized the truth I'd been avoiding for 39 years. Peyton had always been the villain. Barbara had just been too weak or too cruel to stop her, and that made both of them guilty. June 18th, 2024. I walked up the steps of the J. Waddy's Waring Judicial Center in downtown Charleston, my hand gripping Lily's. She was 13 now, taller, her hair pulled back in a careful braid. Michael walked on her other side, his face set in that quiet, watchful expression I'd come to recognize as his courtroom mask. He'd spent 20 years as a federal marshal. He knew what we were about to face. Inside the courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Pale wood paneling, high ceilings, rows of benches already filled with reporters and spectators. At the defense table sat three figures: Marcus Cole in an orange jumpsuit, his snake tattoo visible above the collar, Peyton in a gray suit, her face blank, and my mother, Barbara Hart, in navy blue, her silver hair perfectly styled, her hands folded as if she were attending a charity luncheon. I took my seat in the front row. Lily sat between Michael and me, her hands clenched in her lap. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Patricia Harmon, a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, took the bench. The United States versus Barbara Ann Hart Peyton, Olivia Hart, and Marcus James Cole. Charges: conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, racketeering and kidnapping resulting in serious bodily injury. How did the defendants plead? All three said not guilty. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat through every day of it listening as the prosecution, led by U.S. Attorney James Whitfield, laid out the evidence piece by piece. He began with the scholarship theft. The original Northwestern acceptance letter dated April 15, 2009, with its full ride offer worth $185,000. The IT logs from Northwestern showing the email was opened at 2:37 a.m. on April 16th from Peyton's IP address in Charleston. The fake decline email sent 30 minutes later. The 15 years of lost income I'd never recover. Then came the career sabotage. 12 fabricated emails sent between 2019 and 2024 each one, demanding outrageous price hikes or threatening former clients. The IP logs tracing every message to Peyton's home computer. The forensic analysis showing a calendar syncing Trojan installed on Christmas Day 2018, giving Peyton access to my every meeting, every deadline, every vulnerability. $840,000 in lost contracts. Next, the digital framing. The Trojan named svchos32.exe planted on my laptop in December 2023. The fake hacking logs backdated to make it look like I'd breached 3 major banks. The South Carolina Board of Accountancy suspension letter, the $50,000 legal bill to clear my name. Emily Gray, the forensic expert, testified for 2 hours, walking the jury through every line of malicious code. And finally, the kidnapping. Agent Sarah Torres took the stand describing the ransom email, the GPS tracker on Peyton's car, the SWAT raid at dawn. Marcus Cole, who'd taken a plea deal in exchange for his testimony, admitted that Peyton had paid him $20,000 to abduct Lily and hold her until Rosalind paid, or until 3 days passed, at which point he was to dispose of the child in Lake Marion. But the most damning evidence came from Barbara herself. The prosecution played 12 years of recordings Michael had gathered. Barbara's voice cold and enabling, encouraging Peyton's every crime. "I'm proud of you." "You're so much stronger than Rosalind." "I'll support whatever you need to do." And most chilling, her response to Peyton's plan to kill Lily. "If you believe this is necessary, then I trust your judgment." The jury sat in silence as the audio filled the courtroom. I watched their faces. Disgust. Horror. One woman in the back row wiped her eyes. Peyton's defense attorney tried to argue diminished capacity. He brought in a psychiatrist who testified that Peyton suffered from dependent personality disorder, that she'd been manipulated by her mother her entire life, that she wasn't capable of forming criminal intent. But Whitfield dismantled it on cross-examination. He showed the jury Peyton's meticulous planning, the fake email accounts she'd created, the burner phone she'd purchased to contact Marcus, the Google searches on her laptop, how to dispose of body in South Carolina. Can police trace anonymous email? Statute of limitations kidnapping. This wasn't a woman being manipulated. This was a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. On August 14th, Lily took the stand. She wore a blue dress and kept her eyes on me the entire time Whitfield questioned her. "Lily, can you tell the jury what Marcus Cole said to you while you were in the cabin?" Her voice was quiet but steady. "He said Aunt Peyton paid him to take me. He said if my mom didn't pay the ransom in 3 days, he was going to kill me and dump my body in the lake so no one would find me." Peyton's attorney tried to object, but Judge Harmon overruled him. Lily continued. "He said Aunt Peyton told him my mom deserved to suffer because she wasn't supposed to have anything good in her life. He said it was personal." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. On August 22nd, they returned with a verdict guilty on all counts, all 3 defendants. Sentencing came 2 weeks later on September 6th. Judge Harmon read the sentences without emotion. Marcus Cole, 35 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 25. His cooperation had reduced his sentence from 45. Peyton Olivia Hart, 45 years in federal prison, no parole eligibility for 30. The judge noted the premeditation, the financial motive, the targeting of a child. Barbara Ann Hart, 25 years in federal prison, no parole. At 65 years old, it was effectively a life sentence. The judge added, "Mrs. Hart, you orchestrated a decade-long campaign of psychological and financial abuse against your own daughter, culminating in a plot to murder your granddaughter for money. This court finds no mitigating factors." Barbara didn't flinch. She stared straight ahead, her face a mask. The judge also ordered restitution $5 million to be paid from Barbara's estate and Peyton's seized assets, $2.1 million in economic damages, lost income, legal fees, medical costs, $2.9 million in punitive damages. Before the hearing ended, Judge Harmon asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I stood my legs shaking. Lily squeezed my hand. "Your Honor, I don't need the money. I never did. What I need is for my daughter to know that people who hurt children go to prison. That justice isn't about revenge, it's about safety. For 15 years, my mother and my sister tried to destroy me. They stole my education, my career, my peace of mind. And when that wasn't enough, they tried to kill my child. I want Lily to grow up knowing that what happened to her wasn't her fault, and that the people responsible will never hurt her again. That's all I ask." Judge Harmon nodded. "The record will reflect Mrs. Hart's statement. This court is adjourned." As the marshals led Barbara Peyton and Marcus out of the courtroom in shackles, I turned to Lily. She was crying, but she was smiling too. "It's over," I whispered. She hugged me. "We're safe now." 9 months later, in December 2024, Lily stood on the stage at Carnegie Hall. December 15th, 2024, 7 o'clock in the evening. I sat in the fourth row of Carnegie Hall, hands gripping the armrests. The house lights dimmed. 2,800 people fell silent. The spotlight hit the stage, illuminating my daughter. Lily stood alone, violin tucked under her chin, bow poised. She wore a red velvet dress, her dark hair swept back. At 13, she looked stronger than anyone had the right to expect. The conductor raised his baton. The orchestra began, and Lily played Bach Violin Concerto No. 2 in E major. The same piece she'd performed 18 months ago in Charleston, the night Peyton shattered the $15,000 violin. But tonight Lily's hands were steady. Her bow moved with precision, drawing out every note with clarity that made my chest ache. The music soared through the hall, bright and defiant and alive. I thought about the girl tied up in a basement, blindfolded and terrified. I thought about the months of therapy that followed the nightmares at 3 in the morning, the panic attacks every time she saw a gray van. Doctor. Rachel Stevens, the trauma therapist, had warned me it would take years. Lily had stopped practicing violin for 2 months. She'd refused to perform in public. But in October, something shifted. Lily picked up her violin again. She started with 5 minutes a day, then 10, then an hour. By November, she was practicing 3 hours every morning. When the invitation came from Juilliard Pre-College to perform at Carnegie Hall, I'd been terrified. But Lily looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, I want to do this. I want people to see that I survived." Now, watching her on that stage, I knew she'd been right. The concerto reached its final movement. Lily's fingers flew across the strings notes, tumbling in a cascade of sound. When the final chord faded, there was a heartbeat of stillness. Then the entire hall erupted. 2,800 people rose to their feet. Lily lowered her violin and smiled. A real smile. Backstage, Michael found us in the dressing room. He held a long black case. "Lily, I have something for you." She opened it. Inside was a violin, its wood deep amber. Lily gasped. "It's a Thomas Schmidt," Michael explained. "Built in Boston this year. $18,000. It's yours." Lily stared, eyes filling with tears. Then she set the violin carefully on the table and threw her arms around his neck. "Grandpa, you saved my life. I love you." Michael held her voice thick. "You saved your own life, sweetheart. I just made sure the people who hurt you couldn't do it again." We flew home to Charleston the next morning. Home. That word meant something different now. In October, I'd bought a new house, a small brick colonial in Mount Pleasant, with a fenced backyard and a garden. Michael lived 10 minutes away. We had dinner together twice a week. My life had changed in ways I'd never imagined. In September, a risk management firm in Atlanta had offered me vice president of forensic auditing. The salary was $185,000, the exact amount of the scholarship Peyton had stolen. I'd accepted. Northwestern University had also reached out offering to recognize me as an honorary alumna. I declined the speech, but accepted the recognition. Peyton and Barbara had both written from prison. 7 letters total. I'd burned everyone in the fireplace without reading a single word. People kept asking if I would ever forgive them. The answer was no. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed to anyone, least of all people who'd tried to murder my child. They were alive. They were fed. That was more mercy than they'd shown Lily. I learned something through all of this. If you are trapped in a toxic family, you don't owe them loyalty. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them a relationship just because they share your blood. What you owe yourself is safety. What you owe your children is protection. If that means gathering evidence, going to the police, testifying in court, and never speaking to them again, then that's what you do. You document everything. You save every email, every text, every voicemail. You tell someone you trust, and when you're ready, you leave. You don't look back. You build a new life, and you teach your children that survival isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do. On December 20th, Lily and I spent the afternoon in the backyard. The weather was mild 60 degrees and sunny as Charleston winters often are. We knelt in the dirt planting white lilies along the back fence, Lilium candidum, the kind that bloom in late spring. Lily pressed the bulbs into the soil. "Mom, why did you pick lilies?" I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because lilies bloom from the darkest soil, sweetheart. They take root in places where nothing else will grow. And then when the time is right, they push through the dirt and open up to the light. Just like us." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled and said, "I like that." We finished planting as the sun set, painting the sky gold and pink. Lily went inside to wash up, and I stayed in the garden looking at the rows of bulbs. In 6 months, they'd bloom. White lilies, bright and beautiful, reaching for the sky. We didn't just survive, we bloomed. And to you, listening to this story, remember this. I survived 15 years of family betrayal because I documented everything. Every email, every lie, every crime. When family revenge became my mother's mission and my sister's obsession evidence was my only weapon, I want to tell you 3 truths I learned. First, God gave me the strength to keep fighting when I wanted to give up. Every morning I woke up after another sleepless night, every time I held Lily and promised her we'd be okay. That was God carrying us through darkness. Second, God put my father in my life to collect evidence for 15 years. Even when I didn't know I needed saving, that wasn't coincidence, that was divine protection. Third, God showed me that family betrayal doesn't define you, but how you respond to it does. I could have let hate destroy me, but instead I chose to bloom. Don't be like me. Don't wait 15 years to act. Don't give toxic family members the benefit of the doubt when they show you who they are. Don't sacrifice your peace, trying to make people love you who've decided you're the enemy. Document. Save. Leave. Protect your children first. My opinion, family betrayal is worse than stranger violence because it comes wrapped in love. Barbara and Peyton knew exactly where to strike because they knew me completely. That's why family revenge cuts deepest. It's personal, calculated, and relentless. If someone in your family is sabotaging you, it won't stop until you stop them. If my story helped you see your own situation more clearly, please leave a comment sharing your experience. You're not alone. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel for more true stories about survival, justice, and hope. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Before you go, I need to be honest, some upcoming stories on this channel contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If you'd prefer purely factual content, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. I respect your choice, and I'm grateful you were here for Rosalind's story. We didn't just survive, we bloomed, and so can you.